You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
This month's Centresteer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic vehicles from Europe and South America and has a rotating collection of rare and unique Land Rovers. Their showroom is located in Virginia, just 45 minutes from Washington, D.C. Visit www.cwclassics.com to view their current inventory of classic vehicles. This episode is also brought to you by LT Wright Knives. These heirloom quality pieces will outlast your adventures, so plan well, drive safely, and carry an LTWK. Find out more online at ltwrightknives.com. The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the Centresteer Podcast, the first Land Rover podcast on the planet. Centresteer is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. This is show number 73 for April 2019. We're recording on April 28th. I'm your host, John Costage. Joining me via Skype is Morgan and Dixon. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good day. Thanks for having me.
Harold and Michael are otherwise engaged, although you never know. They may join us somewhere in the middle or part of the show. I don't know. Things happen. Our guests this month are Sandra and Bernhard. They are Austrians overlanding in a Defender 110. I met up with them at the Sand Rover Rally. We'll have that later in the show as our guest interview. April is a busy month of Land Rover events in North America, and I was able to attend ROAV at Wintergreen, and also, as I said, the Sand Rover Rally. I talked about the podcast, passed out a lot of stickers. So if you're one of those people whom I met this month, and I sincerely thank you for checking out the podcast, and a hearty thank you and welcome to our new listeners. It'll be interesting to see how many of them go back in time and start from the beginning after this, right?
It's surprising how many people do that.
Thanks for your comments, follows, what else? Yeah, comments, follows, and likes. There we go. On Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and email. You think I'd know what to say after all these years. Thank you for all your support through Patreon and the donations and merchandise sales. I have purchased a new mixer that we're going to use for the podcast, and we're using it right now. That's all thanks to our Patreon supporters. That's the Rodecaster Pro. And thanks for our new Patreon supporter, Justin from Australia. So thank you very much, Justin, for supporting the show. We appreciate that. If you want to become a Patreon supporter yourself, visit patreon.com/Centresteer for all the details. You can also access that from our website. Right, Morgan?
Yes.
Only because you helped set up the link. That's all. You didn't see me look at the screen, did you? Because we don't have the video on. You didn't see me kind of give you the eyeball over the video.
Exactly.
Thanks to Robotor, who is also donating $80 to the podcast for the purchase of his Range Rover Classic winch trays. We've been talking about this for the last few months. They're $480 American plus shipping, and there's a link to them in the show notes. So if you're in the market for a Range Rover winch tray, check out Abel, and you can also check out Abel's winch trays, and you can also help out the podcast in the process. I'm planning to buy a new microphone here for the studio, although I wonder about that with a new podcast mixer, but I still think it maybe a better microphone would probably help us out here. So thanks again, Abel, for your offer and generosity. Listener mail. Hi, guys. I have a Tacoma, no Land Rover. If you are still listening, I do love Land Rovers, though, and listen to your podcast religiously. I have read First Overland a couple of times, and when I got my second water brick, decided it was time to label them properly. Rick included pictures of those water bricks, and he labeled them appropriately, one gin and the other tonic. Thanks for the hard work, guys. Love the show. Rick in Roanoke, Texas. So thanks, Rick, for letting us know about that. And there is, we have a Toyota podcast on the 4x4 Radio Network. If you want to check that out, you can do that. You can also do that. And thanks to Fred from Iowa, a regular listener that I've talked to. He sent me one of the Land Rover Hot Wheels. It's right here. Hold on. I brought the box of stuff, of ill-gotten booty from this month. So this is the 15 Land Rover Defender double cab. So added to, I realize now I have kind of a collection now of Land Rover Hot Wheels and that I've been collecting. Apparently I didn't realize that. I was looking at my shelf that I have all these, and now I have another one to add. I've got probably 8 now, I think, plus some bigger ones.
Very nice. I have a small collection going as well, including a hand-me-down from my father of his original Land Rover Series 2 109 from back in the day, the Matchbox.
I have a Matchbox I didn't know I had. I was from when I was a kid. I still have a bag of Matchbox cars, and I was was going through stuff, and I'm like, oh look, I had a series. It looks like a 107 or a 109. It looked like I think it might have been a 2. It's like, oh, look what I have. I didn't know. Who knew? Before I even knew, I was collecting Land Rovers.
Exactly. Same here.
All right, and now to the news. We will begin with unpleasant words, but here it is. Jaguar Land Rover reveals annual global sales figures, and it's bleak. So JLR has published its latest global sales figures for the financial year, and it's not good news. By the way, Birmingham Live, you made a typographical error. So it says the latest global sales years, but it should be latest global sales figures. The Midlands car giant saw sales slide by almost 6% due to declining demand in both China and Europe, and that is kind of a global. That's globally for them. JLR sold almost 600,000 vehicles between April 2018 and the end of March 2019, which is a decrease of 5.8% for the same period in 17-18. The company has pointed to encouraging figures for both North America and the UK, which saw rises of more than 8%. And the biggest single decline was in China, where sales were down 34.1%, and Europe was down 4.5%. And we can look at, we're going to look at China in particular and the US in a little more detail in a moment. Continue on with this Birmingham Live article. The 8.1% increase in sales in North America made for the best ever full physical year performance in that market, and was the 9th consecutive year on growth, which is good. So they're doing very well in the U.S. In a statement, JLR said the situation in China was being addressed. It said, quote, overall performance was impacted by weaker sales in China, down 34%, reflecting weaker market conditions. The company is taking decisive steps to address these, including working with its local retailers to improve customer experience and create a sustainable model, unquote. Jaguar also attributed to the overall success of JLR with the introduction of the E-Pace and the introduction of the I-Pace. It represented a record year for Jaguar, and the mark was also buoyed by the I-Pace being declared European Car of the Year, the first time a Jaguar has won this coveted accolade. So a total of almost 400,000 Land Rover vehicles were sold. That's Land Rover, not Jaguar, which represented a 9.3 year-on-year decline. So that sets the stage for things. And this, we can go in a little more detail here on the U.S. sales. So JLR reported March 2019 U.S. sales. It had its second best ever March sales, selling almost 9,500 units, which was down 13% from the previous March. Jaguar sold almost 3,700 units, a 13% increase from March of 2018. JLR overall in the U.S. reached more than 13,000 units, a 7% decrease from March of 2018. And some model highlights. Land Rover Discovery achieved all-time sales record with 1,185 units sold. That's up 14%. And the Range Rover Velar achieved an all-time sales record with 2,162 units, up 9%. And the Range Rover Sport continued to be the brand sales leader with 2,317 units sold. And that one surprised me. I thought it would have been the Discovery Sport would be the best-selling model.
Yeah, you would think price point-wise that the Discovery and Discovery Sport would sell better, but I think Range Rover just has such a longer brand. And I guess, truthfully, Discovery is a reintroduction of the brand. There hasn't been a Discovery in the U.S. for a while.
Well, Discovery Sport's a completely new name to cover up the Freelander and the LR2, right?
Yep.
Further, there's couple articles that come together because Joe Eberhardt, who is the head of JLR's North American business, was at the New York Auto Show. Is that right? He was at the New York Auto Show?
New York International Auto Show.
Thank you. And three articles came out of this. One is a video. So if you want to hear Joe talk, and you can do that by looking at CNBC, we'll have a link to that, of course, in the show notes. They talked to him for 3 minutes and like 18 seconds. And a lot of things we're going to talk about here over these next two articles, I think were the same things he said in the CNBC article. But so this article just starts out dire also. JLR is in financial trouble. This is Car Buzz. The UK automaker lost nearly $4 billion last year due to failing sales in the world's largest automotive market, China. And the reason for this massive sales drop was mainly quality control issues at its China production facility. Too many corners were cut. And I'm going to stop there because it's nice to hear like a specific reason. In the past, we'd always heard, Land Rover was just saying there's problems. We're not really sure what. So, and then of course others were saying earlier that they're just going to talk to their local people about doing better. It's nice to see someone, even if it's not JLR, saying what specifically is the problem there in China.
But with quality issues, is this going to be Land Rover putting the cars together on the assembly line? Is it issues with parts quality in the supply chain that's coming in that they may or may not have complete control over? The other article talked about customer experience in the showroom. There's a lot there that make you wonder what's going on in China. And does Land Rover actually own that facility 100%, or are they in a joint venture with someone else?
Oh, that's all joint ventures. You have to have a...
Yeah, so there's a lot of challenges there for Land Rover to try and deal with.
Yeah, for sure.
And you raise a good point. What is exactly going on? And it's possible they don't know. Think about it. There's other things they say they're doing, and they can pinpoint to, they're going to shut down the production in Sully Hall for a week. They're going to, close the U.S. Restoration effort. There were some concrete things that were discussed, but it's very rarely do you hear them say what they're doing exactly in China. They may not be completely sure, or they may not be able to address it. To your point about it being a joint venture, it's possible maybe they can't exert as much influence on the quality as they would like.
Or they're not even aware of where the failings are yet.
Sales in Europe, including the UK, also fell. All told, global deliveries fell 4.6%. There was a bright spot, the USA. Bloomberg reports JLR's 2018 sales in the US increased by 7.3%, which was nearly 123,000 vehicles, and the automaker is hoping to do that again here in 2019. So it turns out the US is the company's single biggest market, and combined with the launch of the all-new Range Rover Evoque and continued high demand for other premium compact SUV, the Jaguar E-Pace, there's hope for a good 2019. This September, the all-new Land Rover Defender will make its big debut. We'll get to that later as well. And it's expected to be met with high demand, partly due to its iconic status. It's set to go on sale sometime in 2020. And JLR previously announced a dramatic cost savings plan to the tune of nearly $3.2 billion. Some 4,500 jobs worldwide were cut as part of that. And Eberhardt added that JLR North America also made a significant contribution to cost cutting, but provided no details. Hey, where have we heard that?
It's kind of ironic that sales in Europe have plunged because of Dieselgate and dirty diesels, when I've read that the Land Rover diesel engines are cleaner than the petrol engines running around over there. It exceeds the European standards
by a significant amount. Yeah, they're ahead of like the next level. Is it level 6? I think the next level they're going to, where it's even be more restrictive on the emissions. I think they're ahead of the game there.
Yeah, I think that is what the case was.
This is from Auto News. Repeat a lot of same things we talked about, but one thing they added I didn't talk about before was that around all the cost cutting and JLR having problems, Tata, the owner of JLR, needs to raise $1 billion in 14 months to replace maturing bonds, and is also burning cash on an investment program for electric cars. Something else, that's the first I'd heard of that one too. That's another data point to put in here. When Land Rover was there, JLR was their cash cow, and now things have kind of turned around and turned in certain places. They're like, oh, we need some money because we got to pay for the electric investment, and it sounds like they're now these bonds that probably they got to pay for Land Rover are now coming due, I would guess.
Well, at least they're making the investment in electric something they have to do.
there's no alternatives there. Everything's going to go electric at some point, though everyone still has to go and secure all the strategic metals and so on to go and actually produce batteries and the rest of it. That's going to be the big challenge, having an ability to go and make the batteries for all the vehicles that you're going to sell. Yeah, or procure them from someplace.
And not to mention development costs to get you to that point. That's Tata having to pay, having these bonds coming due. That's a new thing. That's, $1 billion is not a small sum.
So Tata is a huge industrial conglomerate in India.
Yeah, they've got IT consultancy. They make steel. They own car companies.
Even tea plantations. You can buy Tata tea in the United States.
That's right. So you say Tata, not Tata?
I've heard it both ways.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of general news on Land Rover. Things seem to like they're turning around. Is that the sense you guys get too? Like they've maybe turned the corner?
They seem to be getting better. The news is better. The Defender is going to be a huge impact on where things are going. But overall, the news is certainly favorable for them.
Yeah, I think they said it was they had 3 strategies, and the first one was brake and the second was accelerate. I can't remember what the third was, but yeah, I think they're well into braking and getting ready to accelerate with the release of the Defender.
I think we called it braking.
Gotcha.
But it was something like that. There was some sort of automotive connection. Yeah. Well, hopefully they are getting ready to do the accelerate part. There's some things that are lining up, especially the new Defender coming out. The new models are coming due. They've got the hybrids coming online and new engines. And we'll move on to some other news then. Tata requested flush door handles from JLR, and it took 4 years to accomplish. So I thought that was kind of interesting to hear. So during the media presentation for the 2020 Range Rover Evoque, Jerry McGovern revealed that the car's fancy door handles were the result of a very specific request from Tata, or Tata. How do you say it? How's our Canadian say it? Tata. Oh, it's like a long A. Tata. According to McGovern, this was asked of the design team at JLR from Tata, the Indian automaker that bought the JLR from Ford. McGovern told us it took 4 years to accomplish, so the request for seamless door handles likely came down the wire sometime back in 2012, as the feature of pop-out door handles first appeared on the Jag I-Pace concept in 2016. The designers had to make sure the handles wouldn't have any problems handling different climates, including freezing, closed in harsh... See, another typo. This says including freezing closed in harsh winters. That should be freezing cold in harsh winters? What am I missing?
It should be closed.
Oh, they should hyphenate it. Okay. Hyphenate it. When you read them together like that, including freezing closed. Oh, in harsh winters. I get it. Okay, so it's the doors freezing closed in harsh winters. What is it going to handle, 4 millimeters of ice or something?
Which 25 millimeters in an inch, which is 12 and a half in a half an inch, 6 for a quarter inch. So you're a little over an eighth of an inch of ice, which is something that you can easily achieve in the Northeast or Southern Canada in a freezing rainstorm.
Yeah.
That is so true.
I'm so
glad
glad
how many times they can break through that level.
I hope they're using brass or steel titanium gears to push the door handles out and not plastic.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad we have a Canadian on here to explain the metric system to us.
Maybe the door handles are heated.
Ooh, heated door handles. Maybe that could possibly do it. Well, my concern is what happens if the battery dies? What if the car's sitting for a week? How much electricity is coursing through the vehicle when you go off on your vacation and you leave it at the airport and come back and there's a freezing rainstorm? And
as long as you can get under the trunks or get into the, well, it depends where the battery's hidden in the thing, but if it's in the front, as long as you can open up the hood to charge it, you should be okay. But if it's hidden inside the vehicle, 1-800 Land Rover JLR Care.
When's the last time you owned a modern vehicle? There's no hood or bonnet can be opened from the outside. They have that extra safety latch on the inside.
That's true.
2-step process. I know you can have the your remote key will open up an external door so that it can you can jump it. Okay, it's a circular argument, I guess.
It's when a plug-in hybrid becomes so helpful.
The door for the plug or even if we're filling up the thing with gas, isn't frozen shut too.
Yeah.
So true.
Good point. Well, this is a JLR press release, but I found it interesting related to current situations. This is NGI team to save JLR millions thanks to wireless software updates. So the project, which has the ability to save JLR millions each year, was designed to test the integrity of its software over-the-air solution, rolling it out to retail and before rolling it out to retailers. And so this will allow owners to download software updates for their car remotely rather than needing to have to plug it into the retailer's Pathfinder updates tool. And they tested this on 3,000 management cars over a period of, I think, a couple months here. As a result, the team achieved its target by the end of January 2019, averaging 300 to 400 completed daily uploads.
It's a fascinating article in that they attribute a cost for wireless update to be £5. And the cost of updating a car's computers in the dealership to be $250. Well, a patch is only going to be so large. Why is it so expensive to go and do it in a dealership and so cheap to do it wirelessly? Well, even though I agree that's the way that everything's going to go. Tesla's been doing it for a while, but I'm just surprised at the cost difference.
Well, it's because the dealer needs to make their money once so they want you to come back into the dealership, and then they're probably charging you the standard repair rates of, what is it, north of $100 an hour now to go to the dealer and have them repair something. Then they probably throw a premium on top of that for software update. So that's probably where a good part of that $250 comes into play. Or
yeah, I wonder
£250.
if they factor in the cost of their Pathfinder update machine and how few vehicles you can actually get through the service bays in time, and all of that staffing.
Yeah, I forgot about the Pathfinder. Then which is that's their diagnostic tool, right? That you connect to the ODB port, and that's their diagnostic tool. Is that right?
Right.
And then there's costs of the software updates and downloads and development costs. You got to factor that in, which I'd be curious to see if they charge owners anything for the software update itself.
I wonder if Land Rover is going to have a prize, or like Tesla does. Anyone that goes and figures out a way to go and hack the Tesla system is offered a new car. And
bug bounty.
Land Rover better have some good security to make sure that someone doesn't go and download some malware into the.
Which
that's a good point.
Easily be done. I know people that have done it. Hopefully security is built in. I certainly hope that's the case in some capacity. But yeah, you raise an excellent point, and that's actually a good reason to take it to the dealer. Is then that it's done. The right files are put on the system, and then there's not some sort of man in the middle attack or something along those lines. That less chance of introducing, as you said, malware or unexplained software on there. Yeah, once you expose it to the internet, though. All bets are off, really.
So bringing it to the dealer eventually will fork into the future article we're going to discuss, which is right to repair. But we'll go there later.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So JLR loses trademark appeal against Twisted Defenders. So JLR has lost its trademark dispute with a small North Yorkshire-based trader in its continuing battle with businesses that buy up models and then customize it. The Court of Appeals last week threw out a legal action lodged by JLR against Twisted Automotive, which uses the LR Motors name for a business buying, doing up, and selling secondhand Land Rover Defenders. JLR, whose name is often shortened to JLR. Wait a minute. I did see. I already shortened it to JLR. So Jaguar Land Rover, whose name is often shortened to JLR, has contested that Twisted was passing off itself as in some way connected with Land Rover. I'm not reading the rest of the article because I'm not paying for their Sunday Times paywall.
There's more to it in the sense that the case was over Twisted using or trading under the name LR Motors for many years, and Land Rover thought that this was them taking money away from them. The judge ruled that Land Rover has never traded under LR Motors or LR, even from the British Leyland days, and that if they'd wanted to go after this company, they should have done so many years before. But there's also an attitude issue in here from Land Rover, I think especially from McGovern, where it's they don't like the thought that, as the article says, someone's buying their vehicles, kitting them up, and then reselling them. They seem to think that They're the ones that should be making the money for adding winches and adding skid plates and all the rest of this stuff to the vehicles, which would be fine, except they don't actually produce any of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where in recent years I think a lot of it is on the design side, something that's Jerry not wanting people to modify his designs. But then I think on the other side is, I wouldn't say bean counters, but management side who wants to sell those accessories, like you say. I think in the last few years, them sort of upping the game on SVO and classics and stuff like that, that's been the correct way to try to go after some of that business for themselves.
You would think that they'd look to their own history, because in the 60s and 70s, Land Rover just reveled in advertising, publicity and so on of all the different conversions available to the various Land Rover vehicles at the time. And there's none of that now.
Yeah, that's so true.
Definitely, I think that's a direction from management or strategy, maybe not necessarily, as you said, bean counters, but maybe more just a strategic decision that seems either McGovern directed or got caught up in. Especially, see the last, since he started designing, they've gotten away from vehicles that can take a rooftop tent or can put on a winch or have need for skid plates. A little bit that's built in, but for the most part, it seems like they've gotten away from that. I think they're leaving. I agree with you. They seem like they're leaving money on the table. It's kind of their decision.
Yep.
Although I guess the SVO group supposed to kind of help with some of that, but then again, what was the first thing cut when they had financial trouble? Right? was, hey, we're not making the special SVO stuff anymore, and also the U.S. Restoration Heritage group. We're going to bring millions of dollars in, and we're gonna bring 800 jobs in, and
you would think that the U.S. based conversions, classic restorations, would have been the perfect influx of cash for them.
Though I would tend to think that they've only delayed that in the sense that it's something you could turn on again fairly quickly. They did go buy a number of series vehicles in the United States and Canada, and nowhere have I seen any evidence that they've been selling them off as they have with some of the ones in the UK. So they've got a warehouse with a bunch of vehicles in it. So they could turn on their classic restoration service in Savannah very quickly if the finances turn around.
I'll cross my fingers on that one, because that would be nice.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. They can quickly turn that around. It sounds like Twisted Defenders and LR Motors will continue doing what it does, and I'm not so sure people were confused, were they? Because really, weren't they mainly trafficking in used cars? They were taking older cars, not they were producing
used Defenders that they would fix up and sell on. In a sense, why don't they go after some of the American companies that have been doing the same thing?
Well, it's in the name, isn't it? It's the ones that do it here, they definitely don't have Land Rover in their name.
A lot of them have changed their names, but there's still some around.
True. Well, your time will come too. You just wait. They'll be on you.
Well, LR Motors still has a Cuthbertson for sale, so that can't be confused with Land Rover at this point.
No, most people go, Cuthbertson, what is that? What? All right. Story out of the, what do you got? What are you, Dominion? You're Dominion, aren't you, of Canada?
Originally, it was the Dominion of Canada, yes.
What is it now? You're not a republic.
No, still a constitutional monarchy, but
okay.
I think just Canada.
We're the Republic of the United States of America. You're not
we're part of the British Crown.
Still, yes, I know. Okay, but from our friend, how about this? From our friends up north, a interesting article, and we'll see where this goes. It's kind of interesting one to read. So this is from CTV News, so it's Canada. Consumers in the market for used cars might assume that digital odometers have rendered the rolling back the mileage scam a thing of the past. But one driver's experience with this SUV purchase may give them pause. I'm sorry, I'm reading ahead of time, or laughing about this. So a gentleman out of Ontario purchased a 2007 Land Rover LR3 from a dealership in September, shortly after the vehicle's instrument panel began having problems. Quote, it started flickering over and back, on and off, he told CTV Toronto. The Land Rover dealership agreed to repair and later replace the instrument panel. However, months later, the new panel also appeared to have problems. That's when the owner said he noticed the odometer reading jumped from 188,000 kilometers to 278,000 kilometers. Quote, it's 3 years mileage more on it. It's 3 years and an extra owner on it. The car was now worth not even half what I bought for it, unquote. When contacted by CTV Toronto, JLR Canada said it appeared that the owner had a non-authorized odometer change and he should go back to the dealership. The dealership agreed to work with the owner to fix the problem. A spokesman for the dealership told CTV Toronto that the LR3 was trade-in. Quote, if the odometer reading is incorrect, that's something we take very seriously, unquote. The dealership further said that they're having trouble verifying the actual mileage of the SUV. Sorry, and the person who traded in the vehicle is no longer in the country.
There's so much there.
Well, wait, there's one more. When we put in the second one, you think it was just an isolated incident? No. A year ago, John Fitzgerald from GTA, is that what, Greater Toronto area?
That's right.
Told CTV Toronto that the odometer reading for his used Range Rover went from 92,000 kilometers to 270,000 kilometers after he replaced the instrument panel with a used one. LR Canada said at the time the onboard computers on the owner's vehicle copied their stored mileage to the secondhand part. In the end, the owner was told he'd have to replace 3 computer modules at the cost of $6,000 to restore the old odometer rating, and he thinks that he would have lost an additional $10,000 if he had changed the mileage. Like,
Which raises the question, where is the authoritative source for the odometer reading or for the mileage of a vehicle? And if these computers are all talking to each other and they get out of sync and they pick the biggest number, you've got a real problem.
Yeah, that is the problem with the modern electronic odometers, is that they do share and try to do checks and balances across multiple modules, and you know it's replacing one module that looks like it's just an LCD screen is not just an LCD screen. It's one of the reasons that at least here in the US there's such a big push for quote unquote right to repair, because once you try to repair something that's all electronically controlled and requires dealer intervention, it gets really expensive.
In the first case, it was the dealer that did it, and Land Rover says go back to the dealer, and it really raises some interesting issues. And the second one, it's certainly right to repair. If this is going to be an issue, this is going to end up with some legal aspects, especially with the Ministry of Transport. And how do you tell how many miles is on a vehicle? And right to repair, $6,000 to fix an odometer or a flickering screen. Ouch.
But you have to balance that, though, with the validity of the mileage on there, because if you are buying something and it says it has 92,000 and it doesn't, that certainly is also a problem. So there is that problem that they need to contend with and deal with. I'm not so sure having it in one central place is the right idea, but then again, having it on 3 different computers that talk to each other may not be the right idea either. I'm not sure what the fix is here.
Well, I'm just happy that to replace the odometer on my series vehicle might cost upwards of $800 when it seems to be $6,000 on a modern vehicle.
How's that flickering display on your series truck? Is it still okay?
No problems there. It must be the positive earth rather than negative earth.
Is it still a 6-volt system?
It was always 12.
Just something to be aware of. I suspect not many people would think that they've wrestled out all of the mileage concerns now that we've gone digital, but it sounds like there are new concerns now around the digital odometer displays, because anybody know how they did it in the old mechanical ones? Because that was always a problem, taking it out and rolling it back. That was of course where the term came from, but they somehow locked that out, or didn't they used to burn it to a computer? I think at some point they had like an odometer computer and it would burn to that.
Yeah, I had a 90s Volvo that did that. It had an analog odometer and then a computer that also recorded the mileage. So when my odometer broke, I used to just plug a computer in and read the mileage.
Well, let's go to our other former colonial brethren, Australia. We were smart and we got out early. So is that all right? You all right with that, Dixon?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Australia becoming an automotive third world country, says JLR. So Australia's poor quality fuel is to blame for our drivers. This is from Car Guide in Australia. From our drivers missing out on the most efficient Range Rover Evoque engine choices. The brand's management warning, and then Land Rover's management is warning that Australia is becoming an automotive third world. The fuel quality debate has been raging in Australia for some time, with some manufacturers now unable to introduce their most advanced engine technology here owing to the high sulfur content of our fuel. Australian standards demands a maximum 150 parts per million of sulfur for unleaded petrol, 500 ppm for premium unleaded fuel, but those numbers are significantly higher than the rest of the world, especially the Western world, where Europe averages just 10 parts per million. The Australian government has announced plans to reduce the amount of sulfur in petrol to 10 parts per million by 2027. But car makers feel it will be too little, too late. I have to agree.
Especially if everyone's gone electric by then.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, if they don't, Australia is getting cut out of all these engines that are newer, that are more efficient, that may even have more power and certainly better for the environment. This may push Australia to go electric sooner.
Well, I would tend to think that they have to go and improve the quality of their fuel. That'll reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and all the rest of it, which will help them. But why are they missing? From the automotive standpoint, it's using the high sulfur fuel is going to cause more warranty issues with the engines, which is going to go and drive up costs for the automakers. Burning higher sulfur fuel isn't going to be a complete disaster, but it is going to cause them issues. Right. So it's the automakers that don't want to introduce the stuff because they don't want to spend the money maintaining the stuff.
And on the consumer side, as you said, it's not going to be a huge issue because everything's electronic at this point and can auto adjust itself. But they're not going to see the same performance.
No, they'll have issues with the mileage. But beyond that, it should just work as well.
And in more former colonial news, it's just the way this is working, sorry. JLR unveils a locally made Range Rover Velar. This is out of India. JLR India has started to locally manufacture Range Rover Velar, which will be available at 15% lower cost than the imported one. And this will be a 2-liter petrol or 2-liter diesel engine. India is getting its own locally produced Velar, which is good. Good for them, because if they, it's a little cheaper cost and they can get it locally, more people can afford one.
Good for them.
I think that's the end of our colonial news roundup. Did you like that? I just kind of didn't plan it that way. It just happened. Canada, Australia, India, U.S. All right, maybe not. You guys don't like that? Don't like that at all? No? Okay. All right. We'll move on. This is this is not Land Rover specific, but I found it to be an interesting article from Motor One. We'll see where this takes us. But the headline, and then I'll read detail. The headline is 10 new cars most often given up within a year of ownership. Here's the detail. Buying a new car can be an exciting experience, etc. Once the initial excitement wears off, buyer's remorse. Okay. A fresh IC Cars study seeks to chronicle that heartbreak through a report that reveals the new cars most often sold, dropped, or otherwise bailed out of within 12 months of ownership. Now, the study looked at over 46 million new cars and SUVs to come up with the data for this list, but interpreting the information is a bit tricky. The numbers don't differentiate between purchases and leases, so it's possible some of the data could include short-term leases of 1 year. There's a possibility of data reflecting early termination of 2-year lease deals also. So the researchers at IC Cars took a closer look at the figures for us, this is Motor One, and found the percentages were fairly even between 4 and 12 months, suggesting 1-year lease deals or early termination of 2-year leases have little consequence on the data. Still, it's important to keep that in mind for this list. Overall, only 3.4% of all new car buyers bailed out of their purchases in the first year, so this isn't a big trend. So let's look at the top 10 cars. I'll read you the car in increasing order, I guess, and percentage. So a reminder that 3.4% of all new car buyers bail after the first year. Nissan Versa is 8.7%. Jag XF, 8.8%. Nissan Versa Note, 9%. BMW X3, 9%. BMW X1, 10.4%. Mini Clubman, 10.7%. Range Rover Evoque, 10.9%. Land Rover Discovery Sport 11.8. And I like to point out Motor One. You have a picture of a full-size Discovery, and you talk about the Discovery Sport in the article. Then number 2 is BMW Series 3, 11.8. And finally, surprisingly, Mercedes C-Class at 12.4%.
Yeah, it's interesting that they couldn't really get specific details as to what the demographics were, and specifically couldn't remove leases and early terminations of leases from that data, because that really does skew the data. It's interesting that aside from the Nissans, everything else is, a higher quality luxury vehicle.
I would think, if you kind of think it through, the folks that can afford to change vehicles often are probably those that would buy the luxury vehicles, right? If you can afford a Range Rover, you can probably afford to change your vehicle more often or on a whim, or you don't like something. So that might be why these are all more higher-end cars are mostly in that list.
You would think that they would go, and this is a nice, eye candy for an article, but you need to go and ask some of these people, why did you flip these cars? The implication superficially, at least to me when I saw it, was, these cars aren't very well built, but there's a lot of well-built cars in here. So what is the reason why these things are getting flipped in this fashion? And to me, it's leasing and issues surrounding that.
This article seems to think that it's, for Land Rover anyways, it has to do with reliability.
Well, it does remind me, we had one listener who had bought, was it a Velar? And they bought a lower end model and found that the performance just wasn't there, and they wanted to upgrade to a newer model, an upper level model.
Yeah, better engine. Yeah, faster acceleration. Yeah, that's true. Exactly. So yeah, that person, if they can afford a Velar, I think even though they were going to, give it to their mother, at least that was the thinking. I don't know if they actually did that, but the thinking was give it to my mom and I'll buy a better, faster acceleration engine model.
Yeah. But questions. To your point, if you do have the money to buy the higher and luxury vehicles, you probably do not care quite as much if you're trading it in or ending the lease early. That's a good point.
The Jaguar I-Pace named World Car of the Year. So the Jag I-Pace has been named World Car of the Year, an award meant to honor the most significant new car introduction and conferred by an international jury of automotive journalists and judges. The group announced the winners of additional awards at the New York Auto Show, with the Audi A7 named World Luxury Car of the Year, the McLaren 720S recognized as World Performance Car of the Year, the Suzuki Jimny named World Urban Car, and that is correct, it is the Jimny, Jimny. The I-Pace additionally took home 2 additional awards, the World Car Design of the Year and World Green Car of the Year.
That's very cool. And if I remember correctly, that's JLR is the first manufacturer to win all 3 of those awards on a single vehicle, or maybe even all 3.
Good for them.
Yeah.
The Roadshow did a full review of the 2019 Land Rover Range Rover P400e, a hard hybrid to recommend. I'm going to read parts of this, interject as you like. There's some, so it's going to talk about the vehicle, and we'll talk about the engine, and talk about the interior and some of its features. So at first blush, it seems like a great pairing. Land Rovers are luxurious yet capable vehicles meant for exploring and enjoying the great outdoors. Plug-in hybrids promise to help protect the environment by reducing emissions, improving efficiency. The two should go together like peanut butter and chocolate. However, after a week with Land Rover's green flagship, the 2019 Range Rover HSE P400e, I'm not sure it's perfect harmony. The P400e's specs look promising. The SUV starts with Land Rover's 2.0-liter Ingenium engine, turbocharged gasoline i4, good for 296 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. Complementing the combustion engine is an electric motor that brings 114 horsepower, 203 pound-feet of torque. Together, the powertrain sends a peak 398 combined horsepower, 472 pound-feet of torque through its standard 8-speed automatic transmission and 4-wheel drive system. The hybrid's 0 to 60 sprint is about half a second quicker than the gasoline model, taking just 4.6 seconds, despite the increased mass that the electric bits and battery pack add to the bottom line. The battery in question is a 13.1 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion pack mounted beneath the rear cargo floor. You can charge the P400e from a standard 110-volt wall outlet via its 7-kilowatt onboard charger, but that'll take about 14 hours, making the optional 32-amp, 240 12-volt wall charger, a must-buy for prospective owners. The wall box, that's the 32-volt one, 32-amp one, or a level 2 public charging station will reduce charge time to a little over 3 hours. A juiced-up battery allows the P400E to glide silently for a claimed 31 miles of full electric operation. However, here's where I begun to run into issues with their electrified performance. Before we continue on, that onboard charger, is that new? Because I'm trying to think of, I don't think I've heard of other vehicles having an onboard charger. Is there something I'm missing?
To me, that would be a very large inverter alternator on the engine that's charging the batteries while you're driving along.
So that's why it's a hybrid then, because it's
a hybrid.
Right.
Yep.
Because it needs to charge the batteries, whether it's gasoline or diesel or from the wall. That's what's actually doing the charging.
As opposed to going to like Tesla, it needs a supercharger unless they're trying to use something like regenerative brakes or something.
Right. Okay. So Tesla wouldn't have an onboard charger because it doesn't need one, because it's always doing it from those public superchargers. Yep. Okay, that makes some sense now. I read that and I thought that sounded something I hadn't heard before. All right, so my vehicle arrived with a mostly full battery, 86%, and 24 miles of displayed EV range on the trip computer. But after only 9 miles of stop and go traffic, the gasoline engine fired up with 4 miles of range showing on the dashboard screen. That's not so great. First impression was followed up by 2 more lackluster performances. After 2 separate recharges, the Range Rover achieved 15 and 20 miles of full electric driving, respectively, and it's supposed to get 31. Several times during my week of testing, the P400E would slip into hybrid operation, even with multiple miles of electric range left on the display. I was ready to chalk it up to inaccuracies in the trip computer's estimation of my driving style, until on one occasion, the Range Rover wouldn't shut down the gasoline engine despite reporting a full 100% battery after an overnight charge. Then, on my last day of testing, I reset the trip computer and gave the Range Rover one last full recharge, and the 400E finally rewarded me with 30.4 miles of electric operation before firing up its gasoline engine for the 62.7 mile trip back to the office. Fuel economy on this last day averaged out to a much more reasonable 45.3 mile combined. So at the very least, the PHEV Range Rover is capable, his word in italics, of achieving its stated range, but he's not convinced that this example will ever do so reliably.
Well, in a sense, it's like going and buying a normal internal combustion engine car and basing all your driving decisions on its highway mileage and then driving it around in the city and then being disappointed.
With something like a Range Rover, it's such a big, heavy vehicle. Even though electric usually excels at stop and go traffic, it's got to be worse.
Still a lot of mass to get moving.
Yeah, of course, it's also another reason to have good functioning OTA over-the-air updates.
Yeah, it's not a good first impression, especially when you give it to a journalist and the system isn't acting right, and then it's the first time people are hearing about it. It doesn't look good. But yeah, OTA updates probably might have helped in this situation.
This is very early in Land Rover and electric vehicles, because 31 miles as a range compared to a lot of them are now trying to push over 300. They have a little ways to go.
Yeah, that definitely comes down to the size of the battery. 13 kilowatt hours is not very much when you consider like a Tesla, which gets high ranges. Their low end used to be 60 something, with mid range being like 85 or higher. 13 is a very small battery.
Well, as you said, it's early stages yet, and it is a hybrid system, and I'm sure they'll start working out the kinks, maybe, right?
I hope so.
With those, they better, right? Especially with those over-the-air updates. Well, let's move into capabilities of the vehicle here. Land Rover air suspension, continue on with this article, I should say. Land Rover's air suspension comes standard on the P400E and is available to lift the SUV's chassis to achieve an 11-inch ride height. In this mode, its approach angle is 34.7 degrees, departure angle is 29.6, and breakover is 28.3 degrees, affording generous clearance of getting over rocks, ruts, and crests. I'm told the electrified Rangy can even wade through 35.4 inches of water, but he wasn't able to test that around their San Francisco headquarters. It's nearly 35 inches. That's significant. That's I think a good bit of
just shy of 3 feet of water. That's a lot of water.
That's impressive.
I mean, you're not going to get it over the bonnet, but I'm not so sure you'd want to. Even,
Well, 3 feet of water. There's those electric fans and so on. I hope they don't turn on, because that's going to send water everywhere.
That's called engine cleaning. That's how you clean the engine. You just drive through
some good door seals.
Wait a minute, Land Rovers have door seals?
Mine don't, but
Yeah, mine
I hope
doesn't.
the new ones do.
Yeah.
It was a later invention.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. What, 1948? Because it almost seems like every Land Rover was stuck in 47, right?
That's right.
Terrain response software with specialized programming for sand, ice, snow, rods, and rocks. We've noted about that. But it also has trailer stability assist, and selectable low range crawling ratio should be enhanced by the increased hybrid torque. Infotainment system combines a pair of 10-inch displays with a large digital instrument cluster, placing a total of 3 screens in front of the driver. The aforementioned lower screen feels like a solution in search of a problem. It doesn't actually do much besides display redundant information. It also makes climate control manipulations more complex than simple buttons would. The author likes the look of the 2 floating physical control knobs. He thinks that looks cool. The main display features an evolution of the Touch Pro software that's been present on the last few generations of JLR vehicles. It's organized well enough, features a customizable home screen. You can tweak it, add different shortcuts to your needs. He also enjoyed the predictive destination and route features built into its navigation software when paired with the accompanying phone app. Well, there's another good reason to have over-the-air updates so you can keep your onboard navigation system up to date. Or you can do like they did in the old days, right? Get out the CDs.
I think everyone now has been trained to have their Android or iPhone in a cradle and then running Waze or Apple Maps or something and doing it all that way.
True,
Agreed.
but if these guys were to get even better, you could possibly get away from those if you needed. Then you wouldn't have to connect your phone and find a charge holder, a phone holder, and stick it to the windscreen or put them in the vent flaps. I think not having to hook it up to something would be nice.
Well, unless they do a fantastic job on their infotainment system, people are still going to be plugging in their iPhones and Androids to run their music and podcasts and everything else, because the automakers have been spectacularly behind the times generally with the user functionality of these things.
Podcasts, you say? Who listens to a podcast, you say?
Especially long ones.
Especially long-winded ones that you have to redo. Oh, that's where CarPlay and what Auto Android, I think that's what they call it, or Android for Auto, comes into play, so that you can have some of these functions from your phone, and it'll Bluetooth it to the onboard entertainment system, and that way you don't have to have your phone there, but it has all of your personalization stuff as part of it. That's why CarPlay and Auto for Android, if I got that right, are so useful. Moving on, equipped driver aid features include standard rear camera, which of course is federal law here in the U.S., and sensors and rear cross traffic alerts, as well as an optional surround view camera system that aids in precise parking at highway speeds, optional lane keeping, steering assist, automatic emergency braking, and adaptive cruise control. There's also blind spot monitoring, can makes confident lane changes in this 197-inch long SUV. Kind of wrapping up here, how I'd spec it. He says the 2019 Land Rover Range Rover P400e is only available in the mid-tier HSE trim level, which starts at $95,950 before options and a $1,295 destination charge. Destination charge has been going up. Jeez. This example comes in at $1,000, if only $108,945 as tested, including options like a $4,000 driver assist package, adaptive cruise, lane keeping, $1,785 vision package, automatic high beams, interior ambient lighting, heads-up display, and nearly $6,000 in various comfort and styling upgrades. The P400e only costs $1,000 more than the non-hybrid HSE V6. There is not a huge hybrid tax. Plus, the PHEV offers big potential for economy with regular recharges. 31 miles of EV range is a good starting point for larger efficiency gains, to say nothing of the benefits of the 140 extra pound-feet of torque. But again, I don't see real-world numbers anywhere near JLR claims for much of my testing. Plus, troubled by potential hiccups in reliability, I'm hesitant to actually recommend the P400e over the Range Rover's proven V6 and V8 options.
I like that it's only a $1,000 price increase for the PHEV function, but and I would love to see one of these on the trail, considering you could probably do a fair amount of trail riding in just pure EV mode. But at those prices, you're not going to see one on the trails anytime soon.
For a few years.
Yes. You have $108,000. You're going to go check that out?
Yeah, and then I'll trade it in within a year.
And now it's time for new Land Rover Defender news. All right, I said I wasn't going to use any of the sound effects from the new Roadcaster, but I couldn't resist. What do you guys think? What's it sound like? Sound all right? Ready?
As an exception for the Defender, I'm willing to accept that one.
I have had the idea to get some other sound effects in there, like, Land Rovers starting up or beeping and things like that. So maybe we get some of those and then we could use those appropriately. But then I guess we become the podcast I don't want to become, which is that morning show feel. I will try to restrict my use of the new Land Rover Defender news. Toys, I guess.
So what new news do we have on the Defender?
I'm glad you asked. You asked about news of the new Land Rover Defender. So glad you asked. Thank you for that. Actually, Summit Rovers, the first time I saw the Summit Rover actually emailed us and provided links to YouTube videos of the new Defender. There we go. The new Defender and the Range Rover Evoque that was, or the Range, it wasn't an Evoque, but the Range Rover, it was on that test mule in Moab. And so we saw those. Those were pretty cool. But then some articles came out, and this is the one I'll read here, and then we can chat about it. This is from thefastlanecar.com, and they say here that up in the Rocky Mountains, we or other members of the TFL community often see prototypes testing in the wild. This time around, one of our readers caught none other than the 2020 Land Rover Defender out and about in Frisco, Colorado. All right, I'll try to resist. These images surfaced just a week after another reader spotted a Defender testing in Moab, which we talked about. On top of that, the eagle-eyed reader spotted the short wheelbase two-door Range Rover variant testing in the same general area. The new Defender out testing in the Rocky Mountains and Moab area, which is an appropriate place to be doing those things. So we'll have a link to those videos from YouTube in the show notes.
The videos were especially interesting. The Defender specifically had some stickers on it stating that it was an electric vehicle, despite having exhaust pipes. So it was probably a PHEV model. Although that said, the guy who recorded the videos went a little overboard getting those videos and photos. I think at one point he even crossed a stream while the drivers were off doing something else to go take some photos. But, I guess he had to do what he had to do.
That's right. Good for him, so we can see it out in its natural element. Well, I think it's important, and they did this in some ways on purpose to let people know that they were there and were spotted, and they didn't seem to take much action to not to be spotted. So I think it's part of the plan. I think it's part of the plan to let people know that we are testing it. We're putting it through the paces that you would anticipate us putting it through. And then also a part of this was kind of revealed that the new Land Rover Defender should debut in September of 2019. This is from Gear Patrol, the all-new 2020 Land Rover Defender, most highly anticipated launch. We know that. They've seen camouflage, spy shots. We know about that. And now we have official approximate release date, September 2019. JLR PR head Tim Krieger told Australia's Car Advice the plan, not yet finalized, is to launch the new Defender around September. The company reportedly intends to unveil the SUV either at the Frankfurt Motor Show or a separate event, and then deliveries would begin to customers in Australia and around the world, including the U.S., in early 2020.
Looking forward to seeing what the thing actually is going to look like and be able to do.
All right, that concludes New Defender News.
Okay, that's the last time you get to use that until the Defender is officially released.
Oh, okay, all right. I'll try to resist. Speaking of the Defender, but this is not the new one. It's the old one. This is a special one that it was made to be used in Game of Thrones and to be a film vehicle. So it's very short, but it's interesting to see. I watch Game of Thrones. I'm sure many others do. And the Land Rover Defender Ute is fitted with a flat tray, and that's in the back, of course, behind the cab, as you would expect, and runs a Chevy V8 and long travel desert racing suspension with 4 big bag off-road tires in order to create as smooth as possible platform for the huge camera boom. Known as a Russian arm, the huge carbon fiber boom is operated from the tray of the vehicle, and the film where the film crew is completely sheltered from the elements. elements. And then they film, I think that there's an epic battle coming up. It's probably going to be tonight, actually, as we're recording this. And I guess they use that as part of the filming.
I like that they saw the final footage of that and said it looked too much like CG. So I guess it works too well.
It's like, exactly. Like, hey, we were actually there. We actually did it in real time. It looks like CG. What is long travel desert racing suspension?
It's just what it sounds like. It allows further droop on the suspension. And it's designed for desert racing.
Okay, so it would probably be faster to react, and then, as you said, it would be able to drop further than normal.
Yeah, it allows to absorb more of an impact.
Now, at the risk of your sound effects, will you be able to put this boom and this type of modification on the new Defender? Obviously, the old Defender was very versatile. It could do all sorts of things with it. Is it possible with the new one?
That's a good question. I mean, will it have that versatility where it has the cab in the front and then the back half is, whatever you want to make it? There has been some speculation that is the case. Certainly remains to be seen, right?
Yeah, we shall see.
I use no sound effects. Just my hand hovered over. There's 8 available buttons. My hand hovered. I didn't use any of them. Moving on to non-specific Land Rover news that's interesting to us nonetheless. The Queen, that is the Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and all the dominions that does not include Canada, apparently, because it's not a dominion anymore. Who knows?
No, Queen is the head of state. Queen is head of state of at least 13 different countries.
Oh, that's the Commonwealth, yes. But aren't you a dominion? You're like I thought you guys were a dominion.
Is part of the British Empire, part of the Commonwealth.
Gotcha.
Queen is our head of state. When Charles has to go take over, it's going to require an act of secession by the British Parliament, Canadian Parliament, and Australian parliaments, at the very least, to go and say he can be king.
Interesting. Have you seen, there's on Netflix, and it's a joint effort, I think, Canada and France and the U.S., called Versailles. It's about Louis XIV, who is the longest serving monarch in European history. Something like 72 years or something like that. If I remember, I can't remember the exact time frame. So my current thought is Elizabeth II is the longest serving British monarch. I think she's trying to beat Louis XIV.
Well, she's beaten Victoria. She's closing in.
Yep.
1952 she took over, so been doing it for quite a while.
I think she's got 10 years to go, if I'm not mistaken, or just under 10 years to beat Louis XIV. And Louis XIV was dead and gone before the American Revolution. I think it's 1714.
Elizabeth lasts as long as her mother. She will break the record.
True. Speaking of the Queen, as we said, she's 92. She's going to give up driving on public roads. And as we know, she is the only person in the UK permitted to drive without a license because she owns the roads, she owns everything. And
all the licenses are given out in her name, so it's kind of hard for her to give herself a license.
I think she could. Why not? Wouldn't that be cool? She should have license number 1. And the Queen, who will be 93 next month, is known to enjoy driving her fleet of cars that include Land Rovers and Jaguars. Plus, we know we think she could actually probably repair one. As you may recall, she drove ambulances in World War II. Maybe not the current ones, but she could probably repair a Defender, I'm sure.
Well, there's lots of royal estates for her to drive on, especially up in the Highlands.
And finally, in the news, this is more of an overlanding story, and we're going to raise a glass to Heidi Hetzer. She died this past week. I think it was this past week. She was 81. She was a Berlin businesswoman who, late in life, decided to drive around the world in an American vintage car. It won her many fans back in her home country of Germany. She died this past weekend in Berlin. The cause of death was unclear. She was a trained mechanic who once lost a finger repairing an engine. Now, did the Queen lose a finger repairing an engine? That's what I want to know.
Nope.
Okay.
Not that we know of, but she does wear gloves a lot.
Hetzer took over the family car business in 1969, turning into one of Berlin's biggest, having taken part in various car rallies for decades and driven from Germany to China in 2007. Hetzer decided to take her 1930s Hudson Greater 8 on a world tour in 2014. She documented her journey on Instagram and received a hero's welcome and returned to Berlin in 2017. And that car is magnificent. It's one of those 30s looking cars that I thought it was a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. or maybe a Packard from that time period, or even a Buick. I mean, they had that, the wings are covered over the tires, and then the engine has a separate covering with the large headlights, and he's got the long saloon body with the running boards. Nice looking car, and our hats off, and we'll hoist a pint to Heidi.
Well, her Instagram feed is still there and alive, and you go through it, there's Land Rovers do appear here and there in it as she goes through Africa and such.
Very nice. Extremely impressive that she did that.
Yep.
Was she alone? That's the part I didn't see.
Not in the Africa.
Okay.
I don't know about the others.
Okay. Usually when you hear about a woman going overlanding, she's usually alone, but the guys usually go in pairs, or they go with somebody. Maybe not. I could be seeing something that isn't there. Raise a glass to Heidi Hetzer as an overlanding icon.
Yep.
Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic cars and trucks from Europe and South America. They're a registered Virginia dealership with a physical showroom just 45 minutes west of Washington, D.C. They specialize in importing and restoring different makes, models, and variants of vehicles not originally sold in the United States. Their vehicles are imported, titled, and available for you to test drive before you buy. For the Land Rover enthusiast looking for two-door Range Rover Classics, TDI-powered Discoveries, or beautifully restored Defenders, their showroom in Marshall, Virginia is a unique destination. Looking for something special? They can help source, restore, and import that special truck you've been looking for. Contact Commonwealth Classics for your next classic vehicle. Commonwealth Classics. Visit www.cwclassics.com. All right, before we talk to our guests, Sandra and Bernhard, this month for the show, I would like to talk about some events that I actually attended, and also Dixon has gone to. So we thought we'll take some time here to do a kind of a event review. April seems to be the new month for Land Rover events throughout North America. October seems to be the other month these days. There's all these events going on. In fact, today where we're recording, if I didn't have other plans, I might have been at Uhari down in North Carolina, because they're having an event down there. First up, I went to ROAV, which is Rover at Wintergreen, sponsored by ROAV. David Short has been on the show. We talked about that, and it's a small, relatively small event compared to MAR and some of the other events I've heard about. The SCAR takes place in Wintergreen Resort in Virginia. Just had a really nice time. There's varying levels of trails there. It's on a ski resort, and there was a little bit of snow, very little bit of snow left on the mountain we got there. The most interesting thing actually about that place, if you've not been, especially at that time of year, they seem to get a lot of fog. So you're coming, it's near the Blue Ridge Parkway, or part of the Blue Ridge Mountains there. And I was down in the valley, and it's sunny and nice, and start making the trek up the mountain to get to Wintergreen, and actually got in some nice dense fog. I probably couldn't see more than about 20 yards ahead of me. I actually got to use my rear fog light on the Defender for its intended purpose. So I was very excited.
Nice.
I know. So that was cool. Met a lot of new people, met up with some old friends. Jeff Aronson was there. David Short was there, and got to talk with them. The Lucky 8 guys were there, and the fact they even had a little bit of lunch for us on Saturday afternoon. They made some hot dogs and bratwursts for us, so it was nice. As I said, there's different levels of trails. Basically a 2.5, 3-day event. They really want you out of there by, I think, noon or so on Sunday, but you got there Friday and then Saturday, and because of all the fog, they were concerned about having people go out on the trails because they were kind of wet, and made it even a little more challenging than it probably would have been. So by the time I got there and situated, didn't go out on the trail on Friday, but there was a gathering of folks and did that. They were gonna have a twilight trail run again, which was supposed to be very light, which we did the next day actually, but it was supposed to be a very light trail, and it was. But because of the dampness from the fog, they said it was probably a little too challenging and didn't want to risk having people go out there and get stuck, which actually I think did happen, if I'm not mistaken. I think somebody did, if I'm not mistaken, did go out on the trail later that evening, and they had to abandon the vehicle and get it the next day. So things can happen. Saturday, they have a breakfast. Everybody kind of meets up, kind of a driver's talk about what's going to happen, and they break you into 3 different groups depending on the trails that you want to go on. effectively light, medium, and more difficult. I did take my truck out on the very, very light. Part of it was on the parkway and tarmac road, and there was a little bit of gravel. It wasn't really anything more challenging than that, but that was nice to see and get on the trails. I took some pictures. You probably may have seen some of those. I put them out for folks to see. I was able to jump in on Sunday on some very challenging, difficult trails. How do you even explain this? Do you guys know Michael T. Boggs? I ended up jumping with him into his Discovery and Disco 1. There were they look like boulders to me. I think it was a trail that they used to partly help maintain the electrical wires that go up to the resort, and you feel like you're sliding and falling on them at the same time. I know people that are gurus and mythic about repairing Land Rovers, but I've not been with anyone who's epic and a guru at driving. And I have Michael T was just amazing. Again, I'm in the passenger seat and he's driving, and we're going up this hill, a little bit leaf covered. When you get to the top, on the passenger side, on the right side is a rock ledge. On the left side of that is just dirt, but it's similarly ledgy. You think, okay, fine, you can get up that, no problem. Except that when you go up and you would level off, immediately there is a tree on the driver's side on the left. Others would probably go up and stop and winch, or take several tries at it, or go far right to avoid the tree. Nope. He went straight up the correct line, hopped up, and then I've never seen a Discovery drift before. I would think this is as close as you get to drifting, but that rear end pivoted to the left, to the driver's side, and just missed the tree. And this is all in one constant speed. Like, there was no slowing down. He just hopped it up on that ledge, pivoted the back end, and we drove off to the right. It was amazing. I may have seen better driving, but I've never been witnessed better driving from inside the vehicle. I was taken aback. I was stunned.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But that was, again, Sunday. We did some, a couple of us did some driving around and then head for home. But Saturday night they have a dinner and a raffle, and Lucky 8 they make a nice video, which you've probably seen already posted online, but they do a real nice job of making a video and turning it around very quickly and having something for folks to see at the Saturday night dinner. So hats off to them for that. Also on Saturday afternoon, looking at my notes here, I was also a passenger on another trail, kind of medium-ish trails, with Helen. She has a Discovery. That was good. She was kind of new to it. She's from the DC area and got new into Discoveries. She did a great job. My advice to her, I tried to minimize saying anything because she was doing very well, but I said, just give it 10% more 10% more speed or 10% more braking. That's a little inside joke to her. She'll get that one. And then there was more fog on the way home. That's right, I forgot about that. There was more fog on the way home. It was kind of interesting. Saturday was perfect. Like, the weather was just amazing. It was cool, it was sunny and warm. You didn't need a jacket, but still not too hot. And then punctuated at the beginning of the event and the end of the event with a lot of fog. Night, bunch of trucks came out, some neat ones that I'd not seen before. Met a lot of new people, new listeners to the show, turned them onto it, and also got ideas for guests from the show from that event. That was ROAV at Wintergreen.
How many vehicles would you say were there?
Under 100, I think. This is, like I said, smaller event. When you think of ROAV, you usually think of Mar and, a couple hundred trucks show up. This was small. It might have even been less than that. It might have been 80. I'm trying to remember the number. A lot of Disco 1s, Disco 2s. Oh, that's what I need to tell you. I'll get that in just a second. But then there was a good number of Defenders there also. And there was a Santana Range Rover Classic that was there, and talked to him and got pictures of that. That was really cool. And then there was another one that was a 3-door that he converted into 3-door Range Rover Classic. Wasn't a Santana though. But here's what I wanted to tell you. Actually saw functioning in person 2, not 1, 2 Freelanders. Actual Freelanders, not LR2s, actual Freelanders, a yellow SE3, which is the 2-door with a rear cap that comes off that our buddy Nick Danger used to have, and it wasn't that one. And then a G4 4-door Freelander.
You sure they're not like Defender running around now? They're not body doubles?
Nope, they were not. Talked to the owners. They were actual, legit, functioning Freelanders in the wild, went on the trail, did stuff, got home. They made
the yellow one's been spotted before.
Okay.
I still maintain there's more 80 inches on the road than there are Freelanders.
I think I brought that up then.
Now of maybe three Freelanders on the road.
Who's the gentleman in Montana that's the Freelander guy?
Roy Caldwell.
Roy, we'll have to get
to resurrect one. He's the one of the world, Western Hemisphere area Freelander enthusiasts. WAIF.
I knew a little bit about it, and I told him about it, but I didn't know the details. We'll have to get that info passed on to those so they can. I'll join too, because being a former Freelander owner, I'm still an enthusiast. So it'd be maybe four of us could be part of the club. As I said, got some ideas for other guests and other people there. I'm looking at my notes to see if there's anything I missed. Dave Bobeck was there and talked to him. He's been on the show, so that was nice. And got some other ideas again for other people to talk to. And
I've been down to Harry, in the past with Mr. Bobeck.
Nice.
That's a lovely small rally, but it's very nice, very interesting terrain and so on.
Yeah, it is. And then the Sand Rover rally, which was 2 weekends ago now from when we're recording this, that is in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, which is near Panama City Beach, and drove down, went down to the area with a good friend of mine named Ed, and Ed is a car guy. He's not a Land Rover guy. I guess you call it these days one of my drinking buddies, I suppose, a good way to put it. We took 2 days to get down, 2 days to get home. The event was really nice. I'll go through some stuff in detail because it's relevant to Land Rovers and overlanding. Well, we stopped at Chattanooga on the way down, first day, and nothing really exciting for you guys happened there. But day 2, and this was part of the plan, I wanted to go to Birmingham because Alabama, it's on the way. Do you guys know what's in Birmingham that's Land Rover related?
Not offhand.
You didn't think I was going to quiz you?
I think I do. I believe that's the Series 2 bar. Is that correct?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. It's called Kerrigan's, and it is a bar where there was I think it's a 2 or 2A. I don't think it's a 3. I think you're right, it's a 2. It's a 109, or maybe it's a 107 inch that was in a adjacent parking lot, was sat there for I think a couple years, they said, and then they took and cut it lengthwise and turned it into the bar part where the taps are, and then you dispense from the beer from there, cut lengthwise. So we got there. Right when they opened, started talking to the bartender. His name was Shane, and I end up, of course, telling him about the podcast. Of course, I'm going to do that. You know that. And gave him a sticker without prompting. I didn't ask. He put the sticker on the bar, on the series bar. And nice. He says he couldn't put it on the length part where they pour the tap. But I got some pictures with it just sitting there. I posted those. But then he stuck it permanently. We'll see. I don't know if they change those out periodically. I have no idea. But he stuck it on the back. So it's actually sticking on the back of the cutout series. They kept the back door and the back windows as part of the bar there because it turns a corner. So that's there. The food there, by the way, is outstanding. Not only is this kind of a neat Land Rover thing, but the food is outstanding. Highly recommend that place for food, and it's a great place. I highly recommend it.
Very cool.
It just was neat. It was neat to see. They were, nice people. They're nothing more than just seeing that. They're not really car people or Land Rover people. It's just they were nice enough to put up with my shenanigans. And then we were headed down to Mobile, Alabama, because it was generally on the way. It's a little bit out of the way, but generally in the same direction as going to Santa Rosa Beach. And we went to Mobile because the Haint Blue Brewery had used a series truck, a Series 3, in its, Series 2. I'm sorry, I think it's a Series 2. Had to use a Series 2 in its advertisements, and they were delivering beer in there. Drove down, and we found the place. It was kind of tough to find because the name Haint Blue is not on the building. I forget the reason why or what's on there. But we were driving around, and even before we parked, you could see people on their cell phones making calls, and people put out the word, there's a Land Rover Defender here. Can you and people came out of the woodwork. Charles Bell, who's a listener to the show and also president of the Gulf Coast Land Rover Club, he'll be a guest next month. I talked to him when I was down there too. He turns out he lives in Mobile. He showed up. I talked to the owner a little bit was able to talk to a few minutes about the series truck and about it. His name is Eric, and he tells me, I think I need to get him on the show to hear the whole story, but you guys will appreciate this. I think he needs some additional capital for the brewery. So he puts the series on Craigslist, and he said 10 hours later he regretted it and took the story and took the posting down to sell it. But in the meantime, it got out enough that people saw it, and the CEO of Monster.com tracked him down, called him, and bought the truck from him anyways. And Eric says, yeah, he still regrets selling the truck. He wish he could get it back. But he does have a Tesla Model X sitting out front. I don't know if that was the exchange or not, but what happened to the Haint Blue Brewery series truck? Because I said some folks were coming out of the woodwork, and then there was a couple. One was in the Coast Guard, and he was stationed in Mobile, and his partner is Michaela. She's from California, and she owns a Series 3 109, an XMOD one that had been abandoned in Colorado. I think I need to get her on the show now too to hear this whole story. Something about it was abandoned in Colorado, and once it's abandoned after more than 90 days, you can buy it or something, or take possession of it. And I guess she did this and took it back to California, but she bought it, this abandoned Series 3, sight unseen in Colorado. She's in California, and then had it trucked back. And not only does she have the Series 3 XMOD, she has a Disco 1 5-speed. And my favorite part, she's part of the, I don't know why I'm trying to show you my forearm because you can't see anything on the video. There is no video. But she has a tattoo also. She tattooed on her forearm, just like I did, a series truck on her forearm. So I took a picture of that too. That's out on the pictures.
Nice.
Her boyfriend, the guy in the Coast Guard, he drives a Beetle convertible. So they're car people, really nice people to talk to. Maybe Michaela is listening. If you are, I'd like to get you on the show to hear more about your stories, because those are kind of cool stories. And I appreciate you telling me those stories while we were there too. Those were cool to hear. And Mobile's a neat place, so I'd recommend that. But if I had planned better, I would have stayed in Mobile, but I didn't know what was, you don't know what's going to happen all the time. Had already had hotel reservations at the site for the Sand Rover Rally. So drove overnight, got to the Sand Rover Rally. Friday is like a pre-event activity. They have it at a brewery, and surprise, surprise, and shock and awe, I know. And they have a kind of a party, and everybody parks their trucks. And then the idea is to mix and meet people, and then find some people that you might want to off-road with the next day, because the off-roading is unofficial. It's not controlled or directed. No controlled event around off-roading. You just go as you wish and like. And then there's on Saturday afternoon, then there's like a car show, basically kind of a car show experience in Santa Rosa Beach itself, in the old town, and that's kind of cool. But going back to the party, I roll in, park, and whose vehicle do I see? I had no idea. I see Bill Burke's Defender. Turns out, Bill had said something on Facebook about, I'll see you in a couple days, and I just kind of didn't really acknowledge the comment, because I'm like, what does he mean? Does he think I'm going to SCAR? Because I thought SCAR's the same weekend as the Sand River Rally. But nope, there's Bill. Got to talk to Bill, hang out with Bill, had drinks with Bill. Bill's a great guy. Bill and I got along. Bill got along with my buddy Ed too, and it was also there at this pre-function party were our guests for the show. First saw them, Sandra and Bernhard. They were there, and they had a nice little place of prominence. Turns out they had been in Mississippi. They were driving to Florida, and they heard about the event, and they swung by and stopped, kind of at a whim, just happened to be in the area and stopped at the event. And I used the opportunity to talk with them. And when you hear the interview, its sound isn't perfect. Did what we could. I had two microphones, one for me, one for the couple. Did it inside of Bill Burke's RV. So thanks to Bill, I got to use the inside of his RV. So it was a little bit quieter, but it was hot as could be. Well, it wasn't super hot, but it was certainly hotter than I had been in a while. It was a little bit humid, a little bit hot, because you're probably talking 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And for some of it, Bill's dogs were there. He had two dogs, two big poodles, and one likes to lick all the time. So you're sitting there trying to talk to people. He's licking your hand for like 20 minutes. Like, no, stop, Jackson, stop. There's a bunch of other cars came out. I took a bunch of pictures, put those out. So if you want to see those, all sorts of different Land Rovers and non-Land Rovers too. There was a couple Jeeps there. There was a Bronco, a Chevy pickup was there even. But it's nice turnout of vehicles. And next day, got together with actually Charles Bell was heading up a trip. He'd done that a number of times, and we went on the trail. And when I say trails, this is like sandy ground for the most part. There's a hill. There's no hills to speak of. There was one area is like a water crossing, but that was really it. There was some brush, but thankfully nothing really too close to the vehicle. One scratch here and there, but nothing. I did take the truck out because it was, as I said, it wasn't bad. I think there was some harder stuff to do, but I can't imagine it was significantly harder than what we did. You can't go on the beach though, like the actual beach part, and like do beach driving. So I guess you need a special permit that they only give out certain times of the year to, I think, the residents.
So not even a situation where you had to like lower tire pressures or anything, really?
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't think it was. No. Mm-mm. You definitely did at Wintergreen, but no, at Sand Rover, I wouldn't see the need. But we did travel in that, went off with that group, and there was probably about 10 or 12 trucks. There was a nice Toyota FJ40. There was an actual yellow Land Rover Santana, rangy classic. Charles has a Disco 3, does he not, if I remember correctly? So
You've been busy.
The off-roading, and then we did that for it's probably about an hour and a half or so, and then went to Santa Rosa Beach. There's a little town center, kind of a green area. Thankfully, I got to park my truck real close, along with a lot of the other Land Rovers, and I took a bunch of pictures. I showed them to you, and walk around, talk to people, and that's when I took the opportunity then to talk to Sandra and Bernhard, and also talk to Charles Bell, which we'll have on next month, and did that, as I said, inside Bill Burke's RV was parked right next to there. And then just, it was like I said, car show, music going, and I think I got some, because I went through that mud hole. Well, it wasn't really a mud hole, it was just a little water crossing, but it turns out there was mud in it. So I watched other cars go through, and it might have been a foot and a half at most. You'll see there's actually a picture of a guy walks out. He actually takes his shoes and socks and off and walks through this water area. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. It's just like sandy bottom. It's not too bad. A couple trucks go through before me, and you can see where there's a hole. And okay, so you got to go to the right. Fine. So I do that. I go to the right. But it turns out there was also a hole on the left. Go to the right. The rear goes down into that, the left rear tire goes down into that hole and kicks up the front tire on the right, and that kicks up mud then all side across the side of the vehicle, which is sandy mud. It wasn't like northeast slick black mud. So that got me the muddiest vehicle award. I didn't get the longest traveled vehicle award because Bernhard and Sandra had come from Austria. After I get the award, then this Toyota rolls in. It was a modern Toyota pickup, I believe. I took some pictures of it. It was completely covered in mud. And so I was the announced muddiest winner, but I really wasn't the muddiest winner of that event.
So were there many Land Rovers in the car show itself?
Yes, it was mostly Land Rovers in the car show part. Yes, there was a Disco 1 that he had cut the back off, and it was like an open convertible looking thing. I took a picture of that. There was modern Land Rovers there. There were old Land Rovers there, series trucks, Defenders. It was a nice event. Just it was one of these hang out, talk about your truck, walk around, get something to eat, and talk to people. It was nice. It was just nice. And you could do a little off-roading if you wanted. It's one of those events, I guess, if you wanted to hang out with folks, not do any off-roading, you could do that. Very informal. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Yeah, it's very kind of an informal event. The only thing that's really structured is the car show part, and then that they have that gathering the night before, so you can kind of meet everybody else.
Very nice.
And the next day was then Sunday. I think some folks did do some more off-roading, but we were getting moving because we wanted to get back. And we split it. We went up to Knoxville, Tennessee that night. But there had been a snowstorm out west, and it was coming east. And by the time it got to that part of the country, it was these kind of bands of rain. And thankfully, it started to rain as we left Santa Rosa, and then it rained for maybe an hour, and there was some nasty downpour rain. Like I went through a couple areas where it was ponding water and it splashed up, onto the windscreen and that kind of stuff. But about an hour, it stopped, and then the rest of the day was perfect. It was sunny, warm, low humidity, and clear, white clouds, blue skies. It was great. So thankfully that didn't impact us. Then we got home on Monday. All was well. So if you're in the neck of the woods and you want a nice, informal, kind of chill event, I highly recommend the Sand Rover Rally. And Mr. Canada.
Actually, today was the 33rd Maple Syrup Rally up to northwest of Ottawa. It's about an hour and a half from here. It's a low-key one-day event, usually in line with the maple syrup season in the sugar bush when they're going and producing the maple syrup. One of the club members has hosted this event for, it's this 33rd time, and he has a sugar bush and he produces maple syrup. Unfortunately, this year the season had just ended a few days ago, but usually people get to go and see the whole process of boiling all the sap and steam rising, and at the end of this whole boiling process, out comes the maple syrup, But it's an opportunity to blow the cobwebs off the club expedition trailer and have a brunch of French toast, baked beans, sausage, eggs, etc., etc., and then afterwards go for a jaunt through the woods and bush and so on around there. Unfortunately, I missed it this year because I had to get here to do the podcast, but it would have been interesting because 2 years ago we went to the rapids near Fort Collonges, and the water coming down the Ottawa River was absolutely phenomenal. And this year it's supposed to go and peak a foot and a half over that again.
Wow.
With the melt this year. So that would have been fascinating to see.
Well, we appreciate your dedication to the podcast.
Oh, it's about a dozen vehicles there. It's a small rally and so on. It's the first one of the season. Before now would have been impossible to move around in the woods. Last year they went on one trail. They were stuck for a while in deep snow in the forest.
So is this the oldest Land Rover related event in the North America? Second. Okay.
The oldest is the birthday party.
Okay, the birthday party is older. Okay.
That's right.
And does this start as a trail clearing or just started because you guys just wanted to get together?
It started, Vern Fairhead had a series Land Rover and so on, and he was doing the sugar bush and thought that this would be a good opportunity for people to get their vehicles out earlier in the year.
Nice.
And it's continued on every year since.
And have you been to every one of them?
No. I started going to it in the early 90s. Weather there has been everything from just beautiful, sunny, warm days to snowstorms or rain. Changes every year.
And are pictures usually posted following this?
Yeah, there'll be some pictures posted. Some people come and camp ahead of time on the property. There was a few people camping this year, depending on how far you're coming. For long distance people, though, it's always on a Sunday, which tends to be
right.
a bit difficult. Not when it corresponds with Easter, because, well, at least in the Dominion of Canada, Monday tends to be a federal holiday. Anywhere else, it's a lot of travel at the end of the day.
Sounds like a kind of a neat, another chill event. Literally.
It's another one of many small events and so on that are very relaxing and to go to.
It kind of seems like a small version of a Maine winter romp in the sense of you're not sure what kind of weather you're going to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, since it is a sugaring event, do you guys do sugar on snow up by you or anything like that?
If there is snow, there wasn't really any snow in that today, but in the past, yes.
Nice.
And depending on when it is and how close to Easter, or if it is on Easter, there's usually Easter egg hunts for the kids and things like that, activities for them. Very good event. It's quite enjoyable. Our next event actually is next weekend, which is the spring tune-up for people to come out and get their Land Rovers. It's actually more of it's an educational event where a couple mechanics that know Land Rovers will be there, and they'll show you how to go and what to look for on your modern vehicle and so on to try and keep it going. And for series vehicles, this is how you set the points and what to look for and teach you to be more independent with your vehicle. And after that, I guess it's the birthday party on the June 22nd weekend.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dixon.
Perfect.
No problem.
From the wilds of Alaska to the searing heat of the outback in Australia, what will you find in the back of a discerning overlanding vehicle? An LT Wright Knives overland machete, of course. These are handmade from 1075 high-carbon steel and your choice of either black or natural micarta. Need something that will stand out in the woods? Opt for the orange G10. It won't blend in with your surroundings wherever you wander. LT Wright Knives is a small company with a family feel. Located in Wintersville, Ohio, they have a passion for what they do. Anything from everyday carry to bushcrafting to the aforementioned overland-specific piece, LTWK has you covered. Each knife is thoughtfully designed, built, and tested before it heads out the door. Although they look good enough for the display cabinet, these knives like to work. Put the knife through its paces and you know you're backed by a lifetime guarantee. So carve, slice, and chop to your heart's content. LTWK creates knives for bushcraft, EDC, hunting, cooking, and overlanding, so you have a lot of choices. Carry your preferred LT Wright knives, model with pride. You're helping to support an all-American company that will stand behind their product with a lifetime guarantee and the satisfaction of a job well done. These heirloom quality pieces will outlast your adventure, so plan well, drive safely, and carry an LTWK. Find out more online at ltwrightknives.com.
And now on the Centresteer podcast, I am at the 30A Sand Rover Rally. I'm sitting inside of Bill Burke's RV and talking to Sandra and Bernhard, who are from Austria. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for the invitation.
Fantastic. So you two just happen to, you're from Austria. I guess we should get things started from the beginning. You're from Austria. Yeah. You're driving a Defender 110. And you just happen to be in the United States. We'll get to the story, but you just happen to be in the United States, and you heard about the rally and came over, right?
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah.
Excellent. So tell us how that all started. Tell us about the truck and what your journey is.
Okay, so we started 1 year ago from Austria to Germany, to the north of Germany, Hamburg, and there we shipped our car by a really big ship to Halifax, to Canada. We was also on board. It was a first adventure for us. It was really nice.
It was 2 weeks. 2 weeks on board. We go from Hamburg to Antwerp in Belgium. Then from Belgium to Liverpool. In Liverpool we visit the Caravan Club from the Beatles.
Nice.
Yeah. And after we was 8 days on the Atlantic Ocean.
The same. You just made a Beatles reference. 8 days a week.
Exactly.
And you were at the club.
The same route and the same time like Titanic.
Oh. So you were so the ship that carried your Defender, you were also passengers on that ship.
Yeah.
And that took 8 days to transit?
Yeah.
Okay.
8 days on the
ship.
Ocean.
On the ocean.
Yeah. Okay.
2 weeks on the ship.
Nice. Is it nice accommodations, or is that a little more? Is it like traveling in a Defender?
Yeah, it's correct.
We have a snorkel on the Defender, but it's not for the Atlantic. It's too short.
I think it's a little bit like a senior residence because you wait all times from one food time to the other ones. In between this, you can make a little bit exercise, or you go outside for the ocean.
What was the temperature like on the? What time of year was this?
It was April.
April.
Yeah,
so
it was cold.
Cold.
Of course. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us more about the truck itself. Like, how did you find the truck? Why did you choose a Land Rover to begin with?
We live in Graz. Graz is the factory for the Mercedes G, but the Mercedes G is 3 times expensiver than the Land Rover Defender in Europe, and the Defender is the coolest Geländewagen.
Geländewagen, yes.
The 4-wheel drive.
It's culture.
Kreitsche?
Culture. Culture is yeah.
Oh, it's culture.
No culture. It's.
You were telling me that last night, weren't you? The Karcha. That was a car. No, it was Volkswagen. We were talking about Volkswagen. Yeah, it's something else. Yeah. But last night when we met up, you were teaching me how to say Geländewagen. Geländewagen. There we go. So,
perfect.
And you live close to the Geländewagen factory, correct?
Yeah.
And then but a Defender was more interesting and cheaper.
Yeah.
Cheaper.
And nicer for take photos. You know, we love to take photos.
We take pictures and the
we have a homepage and all children's say, "Wow, look, a safari car."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a friendly car.
Yeah, it is. It is very much so. Very much so.
Make a smile on his face.
Yeah. So you're transiting the world, and you're doing it. You're doing it over what, 3 years?
Yeah.
And this is year number 2, or year number 1, or yes.
The year. What do you mean?
What year are you? You're taking a 3-year journey, and what year are you into?
Now we are in the second year.
Second year.
Yeah. We are traveling now 1 year and I think 3 days. So we're in Centresteer in the second year.
But before we was in Mongolia by this car, and in Iceland, Morocco, in the Sahara.
Oh yeah.
Or by the same car.
Yeah. And you guys drove to all those countries?
Yeah.
All those countries, but was only holiday for 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
In Mongolia, it was 4.5 months. We crossed Russia.
Yeah.
And it was very
nice. Russia is okay to transit?
Oh,
yeah. Is it? Yeah.
Also friendly people.
Yeah.
The whole world friendly people.
That's what I seem to hear from all these journeys.
Yeah.
People are very friendly and helpful
the
and
problem
nice.
is that in the newspaper you read all times only the bad things.
The bad news.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
When you're traveling, you know that it's not correct. It's
Right.
The people are nice.
Are nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. Yeah. Of course you can take a bad day, but yeah.
Well, and I think it also shows if you're kind of not a nice person, people know that, and they will reflect that back to you.
Yeah.
You know, so if you approach as you're traveling to be
course,
open and nice and friendly, and
Yeah.
I say always on a fourth place on the fourth time.
Yeah.
This is, and there's going to happen in Austria, also in Europe, or here in North or South America,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
around the world.
Right. So, to get back to Mongolia, because the reason I bring that up is I just watched on the Grand Tour, which is the old Top Gear guys. They have a new show called the Grand Tour, and they just did an adventure in Mongolia. It's a very big country, and there's not a lot of people there, and it seemed, but the scenery was amazing. Did you encounter kind of the same thing? Like, what was your impressions of Mongolia?
Mongolia have 3 million people. 3 million people, and from these 3 million people, 2.5 million alone in Ulaanbaatar, in the capital.
Okay.
And other 1.5 million around I don't know, it's 16 times or 18 times Austria.
Bigger than Austria?
Bigger than Austria.
I think Florida is the same size like Austria,
Okay.
maybe.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think so.
Right.
And Mongolia is nothing. It's
And there's no one there, right?
No.
It's just very open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very open.
And did you take pictures then?
Yeah.
And that's available
homepage,
on your
yeah,
website,
on our
and
website, yeah.
we'll have a link for everybody on our show notes. But that is I am not even going to try to attempt to say that.
Bilder Reisen.
Bilder Reisen.
.info.
.info. That's BILDERREISEN.info. So Bilder Reisen.
Yeah.
I like to roll my R's.
Yeah.
I know you're not supposed to, but Bilder Reisen.
Bilder
What's it mean?
Bilder means pictures.
Okay.
And Reisen means travel.
Oh.
So
Pictures from travel.
Picture travels, yeah, travel log.
Travel
pictures.
Travel pictures. Very cool. So you went to you started off on just a holiday vacation for a few months, and then you decided to take a longer 3-year journey. As your website says, 4 wheels, 3 years, 2 continents, 1 adventure. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about coming to the 2 continents here, North and South America. Where have you been to, and where are you going next? We'll start with where you've been to. You started in Halifax.
Yeah, exactly. One year ago, we arrived Halifax in April, and then we crossed Canada and 6 weeks in Alaska.
Right.
Yeah, and before on the northest point, you can go by car in Tuktoyaktuk. It's
Dempster Highway.
The Dempster Highway. You stand on the beach on the Arctic Ocean by your own car.
Wow.
This is really
Now you can drive all the way up there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is there a road, or is it more gravel off-road?
It's a gravel road.
Okay,
right.
But
Gotcha.
a good gravel road. A good gravel
good
road.
one, right, yeah.
Without potholes and
Oh, nice. Yeah. And that's all. So you went all the way up to the Arctic Circle in Canada. That's is it Inuit?
It's much more than in the
Oh,
Arctic
much
Ocean. Yeah.
past.
First you
okay.
pass the Arctic Circle, then comes Inuit,
Mhm.
and there 2 years ago there was finished with the street.
Okay.
But now it's open, so they made the street until the ocean, until Tuktoyaktuk.
since November 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And
Before it was only a winter road.
Okay. It was like an ice road because the ice, and then they made it an actual tarmac and a builder. Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
It was really a nice experience.
Yeah.
Also for the people there, because they never saw cars like
Right.
or tourists. No?
Yeah. You were
was not really
so you were tourists.
Yeah, they come, and it was midnight sun.
Yeah.
So we had 3 weeks without night,
Right.
and the people from Tuyaktuk comes in at 2 o'clock in the night to see
morning.
our cars. It was really nice.
So you were a center of attention. Yes. And then you went into Alaska and spent, would you say, 6 weeks in
6 weeks
Alaska?
in Alaska.
6 weeks,
yeah.
4,000 miles in Alaska.
Wow. Just in Alaska. Wow. That's yeah.
We saw millions of salmons of the fish.
Salmon?
Salmon,
Yeah.
salmon,
Mhm.
and bear, and it was really nice.
I think
Bears or
Yeah.
beer?
Bear. I don't
beer
know.
also. Yeah.
We'll get to
Bear.
beer. We'll get to beer. Beers are important too.
No, we saw, I think, 70 different bears. 70
wow.
bears.
Wow. Black bears, grizzly bears,
bears, grizzly bears, yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Polar? Any polar bears?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Just curious. Right. And then from there you came back down into the U.S.
Yeah, on the west coast
To Vancouver, Canada,
Right.
the west coast from Canada. Then we flew for 3 weeks home because one of our daughter was married.
That's important.
Yeah,
That's
of
important.
course.
Right.
But before, on the border from between British Columbia and Yukon, we saw the Northern Lights.
Oh,
This was one of the.
that's amazing.
It's
one of the
amazing
best
things.
Yeah.
situations.
Did you take pictures?
Yeah.
Did you get
Yeah.
pictures?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be able to find this
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
website. Great.
So this is the reason we go by our four-wheel car and a small car. You can standing in the wilderness on a lake, and this Northern Lights is,
You're there.
in the center,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it's just you and nature and
Yeah.
and maybe a grizzly.
Yeah. It was a black bear.
It was a black bear.
Yeah,
was a black bear,
really,
yeah.
really. On the day we
On the
we
same
saw
day,
in the wood a black bear, it was a little bit crazy.
Any close encounters with the? Did you know what that we mean by that in English? A close encounter? Anything where you got too close to the bear?
It was really close to us, but we learned in the Denali National Park.
Denali? Yeah.
There we learned what we must do, what we must do the bear.
Right. Yes.
And he was
You-
really
You act big or make lots of noise. Right.
speak with him.
Right. And
yeah.
never run.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Yes,
of
'cause
course.
they- if
most
you-
important.
right.
Not run.
The problem was we was very quiet. We
Yeah.
take pictures from Bieber.
Yeah.
Bieber and his dam.
Yeah.
And we was very quiet, and we heard in the wood it's cracking the wood and
Yeah.
what this? And then it came a bear out from the wood.
Yeah.
I think 20 meter from us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he looks like a little bit.
Not more.
Oh, yeah.
Tourist.
Pete,
What
tourist.
shall I do?
There's tourists again. I got to perform. Watch me. I'm a bear. Ooh. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
It was nice. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. And you got pictures of the bear?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I look forward to seeing those. I want to.
Yeah.
I want to. That's very good. Close. Nice little
There
close.
was also short movies there.
Oh, yeah.
also from bears. And,
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to check all this out because, I didn't know you didn't know you were going to be here. I didn't know you guys were going to be here, and we're just making this happen and having the conversation. Our listeners might hear some music out there because we're outside is basically the 30A Land Rover car show, so you might hear some music from that. All right. So you've come through the Alaska, and then you came to the U.S. again, and now you're headed east. Anything interesting for like California or I guess New Mexico and Texas and
The first we entranced south of Vancouver.
Mhm.
So first was Oregon and
Washington and Oregon.
And when we went in Canada, we saw always the Mount Baker, really white with snow.
Yeah, okay.
It's really
It's on the
nice.
border, yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was our first plan to visit the Mount Baker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we go there and yeah.
We overnight
It was
in,
nice.
I think, near the Mount Baker. It was November the 10th, or
Okay.
I think so. And we overnight near the mountain. And the next day or the next morning, it was snowing.
completely
We was in the middle of snow. Okay,
Really nice.
we must go south. Then our car is not really a winter car.
Yeah.
We have a
We can open the top.
you have the top opens. It hinges at the in the front, so it's like a door mobile, but it hinges in the front.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
yeah.
so you have only the tent.
it's
Yeah,
a
it's
tent
a canvas.
material.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's not really a winter car.
It's not a winter car, no,
We have
no,
very good
no.
sleeping bags, so it's
Right.
not a problem, but It's not really.
It's not something you want to live with.
No.
Yeah, right. Was there snow on? Did you wake up to snow on the truck?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
For
Excellent.
sure.
Excellent. That's great to hear. Well, our friends, the Bells, had been
Yeah.
traveling. They similar thing happened to them, except at the time they had a rooftop tent, so that they would open up the
Yeah.
tent on
Yeah.
top.
Okay.
And they more than one morning when they were in Alaska,
Yeah.
they would wake up to ice
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
a little bit of snow, and they're like, yeah, we got to go south. We got to go.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
We have the better one. We have the
Yes.
the original roof over our tent.
Right. Yeah, you do. Yes. Yeah, you got a hard
A
shell.
hard top, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Well, actually, why don't we should talk about the truck a little more and tell us how it's fitted. So it's a 110, and it's a diesel or petrol.
Oh, it's a
Diesel?
diesel there.
It's diesel. Is it a 200 TDI or what? Do you know what engines you have inside?
It's inside is a 2.4 TDI with 122 PS.
Okay.
I don't know. It's in the United States PS.
Well, that PS is I think we do
Horsepower.
Yes, horsepower. Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah. How do you say horsepower in German?
Pferdestärke. Pferd is the horse.
Yes.
Is the Pferd. And Stärke is Bauer. Stark. Horsepower is Pferdestärke.
Previous several years ago, or actually, I think in the last couple months on the podcast, we were talking about horsepower and how to say it in German. So that's why that's why I was curious. One more time?
221.
No. Horsepower in German.
Pferdestärke. Pferdestärke.
Pferde.
Stärke.
Stärke.
Yes.
Pferde. Stärke.
yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, nice. Okay, so thank you for that. I appreciate indulging me for a moment.
We have two vocabularies. Geländewagen.
Geländewagen.
Pferdestärke.
Pferdestärke.
Okay.
So the engine is a 200. It's 2.25 diesel.
Yeah.
And
2.4.
2.4. Sorry, thank you.
TDI.
Right, and then how have you? And then of course you hint. Now, did you kit it out for the adventure, or did you buy it already ready for overlanding?
It's no. The first time we have had the car for a company. I have had a company for sign maker.
Right.
And it was a public relation car. And after there, it was a leasing car. We leased there, and after there we bought it.
You bought the car?
Bought the car from the company.
Oh,
and
nice.
then we built it for the traveling.
And so what have you done for overlanding? You have sleeping quarters in there. You put the hinged top on it. What else have you done?
We have two batteries inside. One battery for the heater, for the freezer, and
We have two separate heaters.
Okay. Oh, so you have a heater for the normal heater from the engine,
Yeah.
and then you have one for the rear sleeping quarters,
Yeah.
and for the
Then we have a second tank.
Oh, good. So
Yeah.
extended. You have a longer range tank. Then you have
Yeah.
two fuel tanks.
Tank,
Right.
I think 10 or 11 gallons.
Right.
More,
Yeah.
11 gallons.
Sure.
Yeah.
And two tanks.
External.
Yeah.
That just went out of my head. The name of it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The
Canister on canister.
Canista?
Canister
No,
is
it's
on
German.
it's
That's German.
Yeah.
I knew you were trying German on me. I could tell. I could tell you're trying German on me. I went out of my head. I'm sure everybody's screaming right now. John, they're called. But yeah, the 5-gallon cans that for fuel. Yeah, external. I can't think of the.
But we don't need there in North America.
Yeah,
But
fuel's plentiful, easy to find.
Yeah.
Even diesel. A couple years ago, you had some trouble looking for diesel,
Really?
but now diesel. Yeah, well, diesel wasn't plentiful, and it was mainly used by truckers. And then Volkswagen was pushing diesel, and other companies started using diesel and diesel more.
Yeah.
And so, thankfully, there's more diesel available in the.
But
It's easier to find.
The prices are very different. In California, it's very expensive, the diesel.
And also in Pennsylvania, it's about 50s. I've been traveling the last 2 weekends, and diesel in Pennsylvania is about 50 cents a gallon more than it is in everywhere else I've been so far. Tennessee, Mississippi, Florida, and actually it was something like, I think Mississippi, I think I paid 70 cents less.
Yeah, really,
I was like, oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, typically diesel and premium gas are usually the same similar price, and then the regular grade gasoline is usually maybe $1, $2 cheaper depending on where you find it.
In Europe, is it different? In Europe, the diesel is cheaper than the gas.
Right. Yes. Right. That was one of the reasons that companies there were pushing diesel too. Yeah. Right. But hey, that's changed. Thanks, Volkswagen. Hey, let's lie. Okay. Yeah. Hey, somebody was convicted and went to jail for that. So I'm not making anything up. That happened. Yeah. We're gonna pause because they're letting the dogs in.
It's too warm outside.
To our listeners, you might hear Bill's dogs in the background because Bill brought the dogs back and let them inside. So if you hear panting or barking, Bill Burke has 2 rather large poodles. These are full-size poodles. They're nice dogs too. That's Jackson, and the other one is Henry. So we've met Henry before.
Black and white.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So you've kitted out the vehicle yourself, and you have where do you have convertible sleeping, and where do you exactly sleep? Like on the floor, or is that above when you pop the top? Do you have some sleeping above?
Yeah, we sleep in the first level. In our car we have cellar, we have kitchen, we have living room, and we live in the first level.
Okay.
It's our sleeping room.
Nice. So you have a bedroom, and then you have the living quarters, right?
Yeah.
So can you cook?
Of course.
Your ability
we
to
are
cook?
Independent completely.
That's wonderful.
But
we never cook
inside and in the car. We cooked outside. We have a stove for gas.
Okay.
Not for propane, only for gas. It was the reason. The reason was in Mongolia, they have not propane.
Oh, okay.
But gas you have, and it's
gas is plentiful.
It works.
Yeah. Right.
And it's cheaper too.
Yeah. I've always thought there's Ireland. They made these. Is it Kelly kettles? And you can use any fuel you want, and like especially wood, bits of wood and twig and things, and then you build it and it boils water. I just thought those were kind of cool. I'm sure that was like overlanding and camping 50 years ago, right? Now you can find fuels for that. But
I don't like to cook with open fire in the car, and also it smells bad. So normally we cook outside.
Right. So are you able to take your cooker and like hook it to the side of the vehicle, or do you have a table?
We have a table.
Nice.
Do
you have like a shelf that comes down, open a door, and you have a little shelf that comes down?
No, we have a table. Really,
Oh, nice. That's
on the top. So
we have so many things in our roof rack.
Yeah.
In the boxes. We have a table, two chairs. We have sleeping bags. We have all our hiking equipment with sticks, with ice cramps, I think.
For
the glacier.
For the glacier, yeah, sure. That also went out of my head. I know what you're talking about. They're anti-slip. They're like spikes. Spikes you put on your shoe.
We have our diving equipment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's, if I'm not mistaken, diving's one of your passions, right?
Yeah.
And
correct.
So are you? And then you're diving.
That's the first time under the water.
Now, okay, well, all right. Tell us that. Tell us that story, Sandra. I want to hear about this.
Well, I was in a diving club, and we went to Croatia. It's not really far from Austria, 3.5 hours by car, and there we met Bernhard. Bernhard comes with a friend to our club, and we met us under the water.
Nice. How long ago was that?
25 years.
Nice.
7 years.
Yeah, 25 years.
25? I don't know exactly.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, it's working.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are traveling together, just the two of you, and it's clearly it's working. So
if you're traveling with a car like our one, it must work.
Yes. Exactly.
Necessary.
Right. Absolutely. Is there something on the truck that you would like to do that maybe it's lacking in, or you wish you had done for your overland journey, something missing, helping others who maybe want to overland and thinking about what they should do to their truck?
We have no parts inside. No parts for
parts.
Parts. We have no parts. We have only oils. We'll have all oils and
fluids and oils, right? Sure.
Fluids
and filters.
And filters.
Yeah.
But not more.
Okay.
This parts you need it. You haven't.
Right.
It's a rule.
It's a rule.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What you need is you don't have it.
Right. But parts are fairly easy to get now because you can have them shipped almost anywhere you are. So that's actually not as big a problem as it used to be.
No, it's not.
Right.
If you have time, it's not really a problem. You wait 3 weeks and
And it's there.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
is it.
Right, exactly. Maybe general advice for people that might be overlanding, things to think about that would make the journey better if they're.
I don't know. We went to Mongolia like a test to see, and when we come back, it was all perfect. So we changed nothing.
4.5 months. We changed nothing.
No.
We repair anything.
Yeah.
And we missed nothing in our car. I think for us it's perfect.
Good. Nice. And have you had any major problems with the vehicle, like any breakdowns or?
No, he's leaking, but this was a problem. It was leaking in Europe.
It is a Land Rover.
But we have now a new water pump.
Okay.
It's working. It's
Oh, it's good.
working.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's and we have changed our shocks and springs from the rear side. It was in Mongolia after 100,000 miles. It was the original springs, original shocks, and both breaking in Mongolia.
Yep.
And we changed it. We have new one from Australia, and now
With guarantee, how much? 3 years and
with 3 years guarantee or 60,000 kilometers.
Okay.
yeah.
And in Mongolia, after 400 miles,
The brakes from new.
Brokes new. The new shock
wow.
are broken.
And
Wow.
of course, in the middle of Gobi. Of the desert.
Gobi.
The Gobi Desert.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
The
jeez.
next village was 100 mile far away. We go there slowly, and a guy from there welded them.
Oh, welded them right there, right? And yeah.
For I think $7 was the price, and it was perfect. The
Right.
next 40,000 kilometers.
We didn't change
The
them.
the
when we
weld
came back.
held and it was
No.
fine. Like it never had a problem.
And the company from Austria sent us new shocks, but to Austria.
From Australia.
From Australia to Austria.
And you're still in Mongolia. Yes.
Yeah.
And we changed these shocks before we go to this new traveling to America. And after on the Dempster Highway,
It's broken.
it's broken.
The third time.
And in Dawson City, we go to a welding company,
Right.
and the guy there welded this also.
And he comes from.
He came from Australia.
It was nice.
Hey, there you
But
go.
it works.
It works.
It's
Still
welded.
going.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. So where are you going next? So we've kind of covered everywhere you've been. Is there have we missed anything of where you've been before we get into where you're going?
No.
Okay.
Well, we would like the Sequoia National Park. There was too much snow and it
It's
was
too
too
cold.
cold.
Oh, yeah.
But we make a loop.
Yep.
So we come back to the west coast and then we can visit the national park.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
it's
You're going
not-
to do that when it's warmer.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. And so from here you're going to go into Florida, right?
Yeah.
And
to
then
the Keys and
you have to exit the United States for a short period of time because of your
we need
because of
a
the
new
visa.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. So we will fly to Bahamas
Bahamas.
for 1.5 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, a little bit diving.
Yeah. There we go. See, there's a
Yeah.
reason to go
It's
there.
not really a pain.
No,
Go
no,
to
I can tell. I can tell. Yeah, you can, no, squeeze. Yeah,
okay.
twist my arm. Twist my arm. Yeah, exactly. But the truck stays here. I take it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Right. It's the joke. You're not going to drive it there. Yeah, I'll get the joke out of the way. Just get a big snorkel.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
you can snorkel for yourself. Well, you have the diving
You
equipment.
don't like salt water.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. All right, so you come back into the U.S. then, and then you're gonna head basically up through the East Coast, and then you're gonna head to the northern part of the U.S.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
the east coast, the northern point will be Washington, D.C.
No, your northernmost point is going to be Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I've
Is it
been.
Nora? Oh, sorry.
It's a little. No, it's okay. It's a little more north. It's a little more north. Actually, so is Chicago.
Yeah,
It's just a,
yeah.
it's. I mean, when you twist, the globe a little
Yeah,
bit, it's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a little more north.
Who the fuck is Pittsburgh?
Hey. It's a great town.
Sorry.
You'll have a great time. I guarantee you. I
we
already
will
told
see
you. You already have an invitation to come stay with me and hang out. And if you need repairs, you need refueling. There's no diving, unfortunately. That's about the only thing we don't have is diving.
Thank you very much.
There are 3 rivers. If you want to dive in them, go right ahead.
River diving is nice too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
And I think you have beer also.
There's a little beer, just a little bit of beer, small amount. I'll show you some of the best beer in the area, and there's also some really good food in our area.
But the Austrian drinks beer like water. Really.
Americans drink beer like water too, so there's not a problem. We'll get along fine. We'll get along fine. Do you like if you like history or architecture? I don't know. Frank Lloyd Wright's most famous building is 45 minutes from my house.
Oh, okay.
At Falling Water.
Yeah,
and so if you that's something to consider. It's a World Heritage Site, so it's called Falling Water. It's actually a building built on a waterfall.
Okay. Wow.
It's famous. It's amazing, and it's worth a trip. People from DC will come up to visit that house. I mean, you'll get diplomats and visitors. It's worth the trip. It's amazing. It's actually a really cool house. But so you have a standing invitation to stay to come through. Yes, and then you're going to head to the West Coast. And then what happens after you get to the West Coast?
Not really West Coast. We go back to Sequoia National Park.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
you're gonna head south.
The other ones, and then south.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything with trees.
Trees?
National Park, yeah.
Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree.
Okay. Yeah. That's
first time the Yellowstone.
Right.
Yeah,
Yellowstone. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those are must. And then you need.
Ones we have.
Have you been to Moab?
Yeah, in Utah.
In Utah, you need to go. You need to go to eastern Utah. The Moab area is amazing. Actually, Bill Burke. Bill Burke is based in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of work and traveling in that part of the world. So we'll make sure to hook you up. So if you're when you're in that way, Bill's a great guy. And then you're going to head into South America.
Yeah.
I guess through Mexico, obviously, in Central America.
Yeah. First to Baja California, and then.
Oh, you're going to Baja.
Yeah,
oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. You're going to go to Baja. Yeah, okay. And do you plan to stay there, or you're just going to pass through?
1-2 weeks.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes, the Bell's house sat in Baja, California. So
I think all overlander goes to Baja.
Yeah, it seems so. Well, it is famous, and that's what the Baja 1000 is. It's this overlanding speed event. Yeah. So that people bounce in their trucks at 100 miles an hour.
And after Baja, we go to the Cooper Canyon. It's like the Grand Canyon. It's a big canyon.
Yeah.
Is that? Well, I never. No. Okay.
It's bigger than the.
It's bigger than the Grand Canyon. Where's that located?
North of Mexico.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not so famous.
I don't know about it. Come on. Yeah. What's going on? I'll have to look that up.
And after there, we go to Mexico City. It's the plan.
Step by step, yeah. And in December, middle of December, we will go back to Austria for 3 or 4 weeks.
For the holidays?
For
holidays.
Yeah, right.
We need holidays.
We need also holidays. So.
we need holidays after this.
The overlanders on holiday need a holiday. Yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah, exactly. Go home. That's right. Well, yeah.
So we want to celebrate Christmas with our
daughters
children
and relatives, and we have many friends.
Yeah.
You now have more friends.
Yeah.
You now have more friends, and I guarantee you, all the listeners on the show are now your friends also. So
then we stay in Austria, and then we want to go back to our friends. It's never finished.
No, it's not. No. I'm starting to pick that up from other, not just yourselves, but other people. It's
a nice one.
They get the bug, and it's nice to go about.
Yeah.
So, Henry is sitting underneath a table now, and he's plunked himself down. I should, our viewers, obviously, our listeners, not viewers, our listeners don't know this, but it's hot in here, and because Bill didn't turn the AC on, or it's on minimally. So thank you for sweating and talking to me at the same time. I appreciate that. And then you're going to go into South America.
Yeah, exactly. Middle America and then South America.
South America,
yeah.
And you're just going to travel around and hit all the countries. Is that the plan?
Yeah, except Venezuela, because it's
Venezuela has some danger at the moment. Sure, right.
Other ones, yeah.
Okay. I think any stops for diving in Belize,
right,
or maybe Galapagos.
Right.
But it's very expensive. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see. Maybe it's more cheaper here from here. from the coast from
Ecuador.
we will
Right.
see,
Yeah. That I don't know. Yeah, but
Eastern Islands, of course.
Yeah.
Or Rapa Nui.
right.
We
And
want
I
to
assume there's
see-
a lot of good diving in South America, and you probably know where those places are to visit, right? And do diving. And you're headed down to Tierra del Fuego. I assume, like everybody else, heads down to the bottom Tierra del Fuego, right? You're looking at me. Tierra del Fuego.
What is it?
That's the very bottom of South America.
Oh,
It's called
okay.
Tierra del Fuego. I think it's Argentina, isn't it? That's the very bottom.
Okay.
That's like the end of the landmass, and it's like the last populated town.
It's south than Ushuaia.
Fire.
Ushuaia.
I think so.
Fireland.
I think so. I'm not completely sure. We'll have to look that up later. But that Tierra del Fuego is like always the town that people refer to if they're going to go all the way down. Go all the way down. Tierra del Fuego is
Okay.
your southernmost.
It's Ushuaia. the southest
Ushuaia?
one.
I've heard. Well, okay.
I don't know. We will see.
We
Well,
will
I will
know it
write you a
after 2
notice.
years.
There we go. You'll have to come back on and report to
Okay,
us,
yeah.
and let us know, what is the most southern point. Do you think you might try to get over to Antarctica if you get down that way? I'm just curious.
I don't know.
Okay,
It's
it's
a
tough.
dream.
It's
It's a dream, but it's really expensive too. So
Right.
I don't know.
And it's kind of restricted
Yeah.
too. We do know we have had a overlander from
Yeah.
the 60s.
Mhm.
He's British, and he was in the British military. He was able to go to Antarctica 3 times.
Wow.
So he's in our badass category, because someone who's been to Antarctica, I think, is just amazing, and so he actually got to do that. So that will take you to the end of your journey and the 2 continents. What's going to happen after this journey? You have plans yet?
No, not really.
Okay.
You?
We go back at home. I think 1 year.
We make a break.
We make a break.
Yeah.
And after no, it's the next journey. Maybe we go to Australia by car. By car.
I understand. No, right.
From Austria to Singapore, and from there by car to Australia. After that to New Zealand. Maybe, but we have also contact with South Africa. But it's not really you go through Africa by car. It's but
not
per
really
ship
our-
to South America,
Right,
to
right.
South Africa, and then
Right.
Nairobi and this area
Tanzania
also.
and those places. Yeah.
Maybe it's
My understanding is that Africa has gotten better. Like there's more roads. The Chinese are building a lot of roads in Africa,
course, yeah.
and it's
More
less
dangerous too.
There's danger, but it's also easier because you're not on washed out roads. Like they're actual roads, so you can go a little higher speed.
Oh, it's
That's Henry. That's Henry. Good Henry. It's okay. Good dog. All right. So where can folks track you down and keep track of your journey? Are you on Facebook? Do you have,
No, we have
just the
only
website?
Our website.
And
No,
that
not more. We finished to work for take more time to travel, so I don't need more work.
I understand. It
social
is.
media.
It is more. It is in fact work. Yes.
Yeah, it is work.
It is very
Yeah,
much work.
But we
And-
have a travel blog on our website and
or
the
2 or 3 weeks. I put anything on the travel blog, but
pictures and small,
But not all
small
the day.
movies,
Right.
short movies.
Yeah.
it's more so that our friends, our family know where we are, what we do, how we are.
And you're still
yeah.
with us and
Yeah.
still enjoying yourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very cool. Very cool. Do you have
We have the website, and we have also a guest book. So wherever you want, you can write us. Yeah, on the Facebook site, bilderreisen.info.
And as we'll have a link to that in the show notes, so if you can get the right spelling and get a link to it. So Sandra and Bernhard, thanks very much. Did I say it right? Bernhard?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, Bernhard. I want to throw a T on there for some reason, and it's not.
Spanish is Bernardo.
Bernardo. Oh, I like that. That sounds nicer.
Or in French, Bernard.
Bernard. Yes, Bernard. I can't roll my R. I want to roll my R. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show, taking the
you.
time, and thanks for hanging out in Bill's RV. It's hot, it's humid, and the dogs are here barking. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for showing off your truck, and
was a
it's
pleasure. Thank
nice.
you too.
This is a nice serendipitous chance meeting, and it's fantastic. I appreciate you guys coming on the show.
Yeah, and we see you soon. in your city, yeah?
Absolutely, absolutely. You better be there. We'll have a couple beers even, and have some good food and some good beers and hang out.
Fine.
Perfect.
Fine. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank this month Sandra and Bernhard for talking about their overlanding journey in their Defender 110. You can check them out at their website, which is Bilder Reisen. I just like saying that. And I'll have a link to that in the show notes. It's bilderreisen.info, by the way. And also thanks to the team here that joins me every month when they're certainly available. Dixon, special thanks to you for coming from the maple syrup run. So thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
And of course, thanks to Morgan. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks to Harold and also Michael when able to join us when they can't. They just couldn't today. And also thanks to the One True Packs for his continued production support. We thought things would be a little smoother with the new Roadcaster, but apparently they're not. But that's a conversation for another time. Visit our website at centresteer.com to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to stories discussed in today's show. We are also part of the 4x4 Radio Network, and I invite you to check out the other shows on the 4x4radionetwork.com website. You can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and email. You can directly support the show at patreon.com/centersteer. And thanks again to Justin from Australia for becoming our newest Patreon supporter. If you're not a subscriber, please do so. And that way you'll get the show automatically into your favorite podcast application. I have talked about how you can get the show and where and how, but if you have any questions, let us know. But you can get the show directly from the website. So subscribing to it means it automatically comes to you. You can directly support the show by sporting a podcast t-shirt or sticker, and you can check that out on our website under shop. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed show number 73. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast.
You may now resume your important things.
Good microphone on this Bose
Apparently.
canceling headset.
Apparently.
Nice.
It's not canceling well enough.
It's probably canceling noise well enough for him.
Canceling noise that I don't hear it. With these headsets, you can go and have a conversation with someone in a DC-3.